Chapter 756. Through the above conversation, there were two things that could be confirmed. 1. To be the master of a mature hybrid demon, she must be a high-level hybrid demon recorded by the slate, or even an old king-level existence. 2. As for the black smell. Black was a kind of color, why could it be used to describe the smell? However, Han Dong himself had experienced the so-called black smell, which was the time when he lived with the slate's consciousness in the dream not long ago. Han Dong could smell the black odor from the woman's body. It was a kind of slightly oppressive but somewhat tempting fragrance. Han Dong, who had been with the slate's consciousness for a long time, even slowly developed a kind of photophobia, which was the side effect of long-term inhalation of this smell. And to a certain extent, this smell also made Han Dong develop a sense of dependence on the darkness. Especially in the later part of the dream, Han Dong slowly got used to moving at night and sleeping during the day. Most importantly, for the black woman who had been living with him in the cave for a long time, he slowly developed a good impression, or to be exact, of possessiveness. Until the end of the dream, the possessiveness still existed for a while. One must know that Han Dong's brain, with the perfect fusion of the crazy laughter attribute, could be said to be invulnerable to any tricks that targeted the brain. At least, at the same level, it was impossible for anyone to cause a mental impact on Han Dong. In the face of the question about the smell of the corpse keeper, Han Dong simply answered, "Well, I usually live in the Holy City as a human. In a museum in the Holy City, there are antiques related to your original master. I just happened to touch the dark matter on the surface of the antique not long ago, which should be the source of the smell." In this way, Han Dong's harvest this time was not as simple as a guard. The origin of the corpse keeper happened to be related to the ultimate goal of the great expedition. Moreover, according to the corpse keeper, he was essentially separated from the old king. It was killing two birds with one stone. Han Dong held back the laughter that kept surging out of his body. "Well, let's talk about the black matter later. I'll go check on the status of the group of knights first and fulfill my promise." "Thank you." Creak. Han Dong left through the side door and headed for the Blue Illusion team's resting area, which was also a laboratory. Crack, crack, crack. Not long after they walked in the passageway, a strange ghoul with 60% of its body modified by steam technology crawled along the ceiling and stopped in front of Han Dong. On the back of the ghoul's bald head, there was a thumbprint of a brain. The seal was a brand new ability of Dr. Swollen, absolute brain control. With the seal as the node, the target would be completely controlled by the doctor. All nerve conduction would reach 100% and perfectly return to the controller's ability. This ability was only applicable to species of the same level or lower than Dr. Swollen. "Lord Envoy, are you really going to let this guy stay and manage the cemetery?" "There's no one managing the cemetery anyway. As long as it doesn't touch your underground laboratory, it shouldn't be a problem, right? The graveyard is the habitat of the twin-headed crowmen, and it's also where I keep my perfect cultured bodies. This fellow's arrival might affect the ghouls to a certain extent. If he doesn't want to follow Lord Envoy and secretly controls the ghoul hybrids that we've painstakingly cultivated, it will greatly damage the strength of the entire manor. I'll do my best to sign a contract with the corpse keeper. I won't let him enjoy the management rights of the cemetery just because of a simple verbal agreement. Besides, the corpse keeper has a unique cultivation method for the cemetery. Maybe it can make the ghoul hybrids more stable and stronger. The great expedition is coming, and it's important to get the help of a mature body. Don't worry, no one can affect your position in the manor, and the relevant authority of the laboratory will only continue to increase. It will not be interfered with." "Yes, Lord." Hearing this, the doctor was completely relieved. Han Dong continued to ask, "That's right. How's the situation of the deeply contaminated female knight in the night squad?" At this point, the ghoul controlled by the doctor rolled its eyes back and forth. This is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Through the biological extraction and purification method of the serotonin, 5-HT, antidepressant drug that you provided, I added a type of brain serotonin that doesn't contain any contamination from my brain. It effectively suppressed her corruption process, and there are no obvious side effects. The effect is so good. Yes. It's better than expected, Lord Envoy. You should go and see for yourself. Okay. Han Dong wrapped himself tightly in the bird-beaked doctor's attire, trying to make himself emit the aura of a hybrid demon. He quickly walked to the room that looked like an infirmary. The female knight named Evie Goldleaf had already recovered her consciousness and was healing herself with the holy light. Although there were still traces of contamination on her face, her mental state had recovered to about 80%. Seeing Han Dong's arrival, Captain Eugene immediately bowed his head to express his gratitude. In Eugene's eyes, he only saw Han Dong as the crowed great elder. He once heard that when the incident with the old king broke out in the Stuart Manor, a large number of crowed men helped the knights escape. Now it seems that this group of neutral crowed men seemed to be biased towards the humans, but the reason was unknown. Thank you for taking us in, Lord Envoy. We will leave soon. I'm sorry for the trouble we caused to your manor. It's okay. Mr. Black and White has helped us crowed men. If a knight asks me for help, I will usually provide help to the best of my ability. Han Dong mentioned his teacher's name, immediately dispelling the confusion in the hearts of these people, and at the same time giving his teacher a good impression. The Crow Prophet. No wonder. Since the death of the original lord, I have taken over this place. In addition to Mr. Black and White's help, we also have scientific and technological cooperation with the Steam Knight. The medicine that was just given to this female knight was an anti-pressure medicine that we have jointly researched. It's just that I'm not sure about the side effects of the medicine. You will need to observe for a long time after returning to the city, and if there are any abnormalities, you will need to deal with them immediately. Thank you. Staying in the hybrid demon's territory for a long time also had the possibility of being contaminated. Eugene saw that his teammates' physical strength had almost recovered, and Evie had also recovered from her corruption state, and everyone was ready to leave. Let's go directly from the back door. With gratitude, the group of people followed Han Dong's guidance and left from the back door. Although it looked like a normal stone passage, it felt like they were stepping on a soft surface. Captain Eugene realized that something was wrong and fully activated his senses. What appeared in front of his eyes was a brain passage, as if he was walking on the surface of someone's brain. This is the hybrid demon that was watching us in the graveyard. As everyone had just relaxed from the tense state of being chased, and Han Dong mentioned Mr. Black and White and the Steam Knights, they further relaxed their vigilance. This allowed Dr. Swollen's brain domain to successfully invade the brains of these people. Dr. Swollen brainwashed them. Yes. When the team regained consciousness, they had already appeared in a safe location, somewhere in the Garn Forest, and they could no longer remember anything about the corpse hogs and Stuart Mountain Villa. At the same time, a terrifying memory was added, so they had to give up the mission and return to the city immediately. After the corpse hogs observed the whole process of the brainwashing through the crows, they confidently returned to the unnamed village. It took them another 20 days to complete the major plan that had taken them several years. When the corpse hogs fulfilled their promise and returned to Stuart Mountain Villa, there seemed to be another living thing in the huge coffin behind them. In order to express their gratitude, the corpse hogs signed a graveyard manager's contract with Han Dong, officially becoming a part of the villa and under the direct management of Han Dong for a period of 5 years. Just like this, with some small interludes, the first stage of the eve of the expedition test ended. The knights who had reached the expeditionary points would proceed to the second stage of the expeditionary force screening, will and courage. Chapter 757. The first stage of points collection was mainly to test the strength of the individual knights and their squads. Knights who could complete high-intensity tasks in a short period of time, or knights who could perform outstandingly in various professions, would pass the assessment of the basic requirements of the expeditionary army and enter the next stage of the assessment. The second stage, will and courage. Compared to the previous stage of the assessment, the second stage was much more important. It was an important assessment that determined whether an individual could face the great expedition head-on. The great expedition could last for years, or even decades. It was the first time for the knights and the first time in human history to travel in the eternal night for such a long time. Every breath, every step forward, every meal, would increase the risk of individual depravity. Those who did not have a strong will would be excluded from the ranks of the expeditionary army, no matter how powerful they were. Therefore, the corresponding test in the second stage would be a super-intense stress test. The higher-ups of the Holy City had been discussing how to implement it. Dozens of plans were rejected because of insufficient intensity, high risk, and time problems. 3 days ago, the final test plan was finalized. The test site for will and courage was set below the stairs of Hades. It was a prison directly managed by the Hell Knights and the Death Knights, called Tartarus, hereinafter referred to as the Tartarus prison. It was a dangerous place in the Holy City that was forbidden to be disclosed to the public. In the National Royal Knight Academy, all records of the Tartarus prison had been erased. Only the name of the prison was mentioned in some ancient books. The Tartarus prison was not a place that ordinary people could enter as they wished. Even if an ordinary person committed a felony in the civilian area, there were only 3 paths waiting for him in the end: exile outside the city, lifelong labor, or immediate death. Only individuals who had reached the level of knights had the right to be imprisoned in the Tartarus prison. It was a complete betrayal of the spirit of chivalry. Knights who abandoned, betrayed, killed their companions, and degenerated themselves would be imprisoned. At the same time, some knights who had been irreversibly polluted, whose minds had completely degenerated, and even their physical bodies had lost their human form. However, fallen knights who did not exceed the limit would also be imprisoned. The purpose of setting up the Tartarus prison was no longer to show mercy, and it was no longer to let these knights regain the spirit of chivalry and return to the order of knights one day. They were permanently removed from the moment they entered the prison and no longer enjoyed all the rights of the citizens of the Holy City. However, this group of people could still become a special combat force of the Holy City under special circumstances or at a certain time. For example, the upcoming Great Expedition. A few months ago, the Supreme Prison Management Headquarters, a Hell Knights, Demon Creation Department and Ultimate Knights, Styx Dead Department are working together, decided by the Parliament's Judicial Department to create a special unit called Reincarnated Brain Death Soldiers. The basic members of this special force were the fallen knights from Tar Prison. Because of this, there were many empty seats in Tar Prison, which allowed the test of will and courage to be carried out. The first day of the test, knights with more than 60 points are required to gather at the Daffodil Square of the underground city. Even without Han Dong's support, the entire team would still be able to reach the standard within 2 months. The 5 of them met up and came together to this super-large plaza surrounded by magma. Han Dong couldn't help but recall the first Destiny realm he had participated in when he had first arrived in the Holy City. Wow, there should be thousands of knights, right? Apart from the Knight Assembly, Wenli had never seen such a grand occasion. Abel, who had been with the knights all year round, immediately explained to the team, "The ones gathered here are just ordinary knights. Like Knight Wino, who carried out the investigation mission with us last time, because she belongs to the Wo Combat Nunza department, she doesn't need to participate in this test and can directly participate in the Great Expedition. Special departments, elite knights, and knights above the rank of captain and commander don't need to participate. They have rich experience in expeditions, and their ability to withstand pressure is far from what ordinary knights can compare to. It's just that. I didn't expect you to participate, Nicholas. When Abel looked at Han Dong, his furry little ears shook slightly. After all, Han Dong had been certified as having a pollution-free physique, similar to Captain Hugo. Han Dong whispered, "Maybe it's because I'm still a new knight, or maybe this test isn't just a test of pollution and pressure. I'm afraid there are some more special circumstances." The time for the test was up. Rumble. A giant demon head rose in the center of the plaza, and its fully opened mouth corresponded to the only passage to Tar Prison. Tita at the same time, the sound of horse hooves was heard. Scorching black iron armor with demon patterns. The special forces of the Hell Knights, the demon creation team, surrounded the plaza. They took off their helmets, revealing their terrifying faces with demon horns, and lowered their heads, waiting for the arrival of a certain important person. The king came in person. The plaza area where the knights were standing immediately turned into a scorching hot, hellish, scorched earth. Among those gathered, the members of the Hell's Knights immediately knelt down, including Wen Li's little sister. Han Dong also knelt down on one knee at the first moment, insisting on the highest respect to Captain Malone. "Captain Malone seems to be stronger? This pressure is making my head hurt a little." The ash crown was 10 centimeters above his head, rotating by itself. Captain Malone came in person and read the rules of the Will and Courage test. It wasn't an inspiring speech, and Malone didn't have the eloquence of Captain Roland, so he opened with a sigh. "Sigh, it's really troublesome. Since you knights can stand here, it shows that you have enough ability. I'm too lazy to say more nonsense. The intensity of the following test is about the same as the pressure of staying in the territory of the old king, and it can't guarantee the safety of the individual. Let's put it bluntly, you may completely fall in the test and directly become a permanent resident of Tar Prison without a trial. Although you all want to give your life for the holy city, you must know your own limit. I will give you 5 minutes to consider. After 5 minutes, the knights who continue to stay in the plaza will be assigned to a prison." The pressure of the Hell King brought by Captain Malone, coupled with this almost threatening notice, made some of the knights' determination waver. Wen Li and Mia, who were in the Raven Whisper team, also had a hint of fear in their eyes. After all, if they really fell in the test and were imprisoned, the path of knights they pursued would completely collapse, and everything would be over. At this moment, a laugh sounded in their heads, and at the same time, a palm was placed on each of their shoulders. "It's okay, Captain Malone is like this. If the two of you can't withstand it, I'm afraid some of the knights here can't. Even if something happens, I will take care of you." Chapter 758. Daffodil Square. In the face of the pressure and intimidation of Commander Malone, some people were shaken on the mental level, but they stabilized their minds in a short time. No knight left. The knights who could stand here were all outstanding students in the Knight Academy. They had gone through hundreds of difficulties to reach this point. Everyone bet their lives in the Destiny space in exchange for the power to resist outside the city. Their dream was to kill the hybrid demons outside the city and take back their own territory. In other words, the knights who were born in the Holy City wanted to see the wider world. Seeing that no one left the square, Malone showed a satisfied smile and officially began the preface of the second assessment. "You kids have pretty good mental fortitude, but whether or not you can really hold on is another matter. I believe that most of you here have never come into contact with Tar Prison. Its internal structure is far more complicated than you can imagine. At the same time, there are different areas in Tar Prison to carry out special management for different types of prisoners. 2 months ago, the Knight Headquarters conducted a detailed data analysis for all the knights who were interested in participating in the expedition. At present, according to your individual situation, you will be assigned to different areas of Tar Prison. You may be imprisoned alone in the empty lair. You may also be accompanied by a group of fallen knights. There may also be a hybrid demon living next to you. Tartarus will let you experience real pressure and fear. Hell welcomes you. The speech ended. Shadow of Hell. Malone waved his hand. All the knights in Daffodil Square felt a strong burning sensation on the back of their neck. All the imprisonment codes have been branded. From now on, you are prisoners of Tar Prison and no longer enjoy any citizenship. You will enter the prison through the devil's mouth, and the undead will guide you to the corresponding cell. There is no specific assessment time and no specific assessment rules. You will face the fear in your heart in the depths of the prison full of corruption and corruption. Such an assessment method made the knights present swallow their saliva one after another, but the determination in their eyes did not change. Han Dong stared at Commander Ma Long, who had a serious look on his face, and said in a low voice, "Could it be that the Holy City is really leaning towards safety guarantee and realistic assessment? If we split up the team, we might really be in danger." Thinking of this, Han Dong's throat wriggled, and he quietly spat out 2 crows made of tentacles and handed them to the 2 girls in the team. Under special circumstances, the crows will help to absorb the pollution in your body. Unless it is absolutely necessary, try your best to resist it. The reason why Han Dong wanted to cheat like this was because Wan Li and Mia's characteristics could provide indispensable help in the great expedition. Moreover, Han Dong had absolute confidence that he could ensure that the 2 of them would not be contaminated during the expedition. As for Abel and Demps, Han Dong's help was superfluous. Abel was a very strong existence. Coupled with his slowly awakening dragon blood physique, it would not be a problem for him to persist in prison for a period of time. There was no need to even mention Brother Demp. If the people living next door were hybrid demons, Han Dong would actually be worried for them. Everyone was sent to jail. The prison staff in charge of the internal support was a group of individuals wearing black cloaks and pure white masks, without facial features, exuding an absolute aura of death. The guards were called undead, and were a special existence belonging to the Knights of Destiny. There were a lot of rumors about these undead. Some people said that they were not knights at all, but that the god of death, Alex, used some kind of underworld resurrection spell to let the souls of the fallen knights who died in the Tal prison sign a contract with him and continue to stay in the prison to guard the prison. Some people also said that these undead were the underworld guards that Captain Alex brought out from the world of destiny. As for what they were, there had never been any record. Everyone only knew one thing: these undead were quite dangerous and powerful. Their existence made it so that there was almost no escape in the Tal prison. Abel and Wan Li, as well as a group of knights, were taken to a prison area close to the surface. Demps and Mia, as well as a few knights who exuded this strange aura, were led to a deeper area. Only Han Dong was a bit strange. For a long time, the undead did not call his name until thousands of knights were taken to their corresponding cells. Warren Nicholas, come with me. In the blink of an eye, what appeared in front of Han Dong was not an undead, but an old man. His body was wrapped in a gray cloak, and his back was severely hunched. The bulging area on his back reflected a distorted human face through the cloak. The exposed part of the body was like a thin layer of skin on the surface of white bones, without any fat or even muscle tissue. He wore an ancient wooden mask on his face, on which there were some ancient patterns drawn with white bone-grinding fluid. In his hand was a staff of death, and the tip of the staff was wrapped with a large number of skulls through white hair. Han Dong had never seen the death aura emitted from the old man's body. Compared to the destructive death aura of Captain Alex, this old man's death aura was a lot more gentle. It had a sense of a whirlpool that could slowly swallow living things. When he saw this old man, Han Dong immediately knelt on one knee to show his respect. As Han Dong entered the knight's regiment, he immediately crammed up on some of the important figures in the knight's regiment. The person standing in front of Han Dong was the deputy captain of the knight's regiment, and also the former captain, Stalvin Mr. Manto. Due to your special physique, the pollution and pressure assessment are meaningless to you. However, Alex specifically mentioned your name in the meeting, wanting to take advantage of the opening of Tal Prison to let you undergo a special training that is different from the rest. Even the members of the Knights of Destiny rarely had such an opportunity. I will take you to the lowest level of Tal Prison, the Chaos Zone. A group of heretics wandering on the edge of death are imprisoned there. I hope you can integrate into them in a short time. The Chaos Zone? At this moment, an elevator had appeared beside him. The old man in front of him was standing in the elevator at some point. He stretched out his withered arm and slowly waved at Han Dong. A sense of uneasiness greeted his heart. Captain Alex really cares about me. Han Dong couldn't help but complain. After all, he hadn't even explored the surface of the prison and was about to go to the deepest level. Rumble, the elevator continued to descend, and the depth exceeded the prison area where the other testers were. A strong death aura hit him in the face, forcing Han Dong to immediately enter the Crowman form and spread out the death domain, to welcome this special assessment in the form of a death crow. Chapter 759. 2 days ago, in the Supreme Council Expedition Special Meeting Room, the representatives of the 13 Knight Orders were all gathered here. After continuous vetoes, they finally decided on the assessment method for will and courage. In this assessment, elite knights, special knights, and some knights who had changed their professions were excluded. At the same time, Han Dong's name was also written on the exclusion list. He was also marked in brackets, pollution immunity, parliamentary candidate. At the end of the meeting, Alex looked for Hugo alone. A special purple envelope was taken out and sealed with a black lotus-shaped wax seal. It was handed to Hugo. The moment Commander Hugo reached out and touched the envelope, he completed reading the information inside. Hugo reached out and scratched his bearded cheek. He whispered, "SSS? Chaos. Commander Alex, this troop hasn't passed the official review yet, right?" "It's currently in the final stage of the review. There won't be any problems. Even if it doesn't pass, this can also be a special experience for Nicholas. It's rare to be able to use this opportunity to let him enter Tal Prison. The death in his body is different from anyone else's. It's the result of studying both mysticism and the library. He can use this opportunity to further his studies. It depends on whether Commander Hugo is willing." Hugo reached out and scratched his messy hair. He quickly nodded. "Since Commander Alex is willing to let Nicholas go to Chaos, of course I have no problem. Even if Commander Alex proposes joint training, I'm very willing. I can see that you care about Nicholas very much." Alex quickly waved his hand and refused. "There's no need for joint training. Nicholas has his own ideas. Moreover, the thing hidden in his body is quite complicated. It's not as simple as death. I just see that the prison happens to be open to the public. It's also convenient for Stalvin to lead him. If I can join Chaos, it's also a good thing for me." A faint smile appeared on Hugo's face as he spoke in an extremely courteous manner. "Towards Nicholas, I'm very casual. It will be the same in the future. If Captain Alex has any thoughts, there's no need to go through me. Just don't kill him." Tal Prison. The elevator carried Stalvin and Han Dong to the lowest level. What appeared in front of him was not a prison at all. It was just a passage about 5 meters long, and at the end of it was a dark purple lake. The concentration of the aura of death also reached its peak here. If a normal person were to come here, they would die of old age within 10 seconds. Vice Captain Stalvin stooped down as he walked through the deepest passageway of the prison. The bulging human face on his back moved wildly, as if it was afraid of the lake at the end of the passageway. Stalvin gently touched the surface of the lake with the bone staff in his hand. As the ripples spread out, a black lotus flower appeared on the surface of the lake. It had no substantial effect, and its symbol was also unknown. Stalvin pointed at the center of the Black Lotus. The Chaos Zone is at the bottom of the lake. You can go down directly. Staring at this strange lake, Han Dong still felt a little apprehensive. Vice Commander Stalvin, what exactly is chaos? Real death. Since you stepped into the death domain through the Raven God, I believe you have also peeked into that domain, right? Our group of people is merely hovering between life and death, occasionally crossing that line. Real death is very far away from this line. It belongs to a domain that cannot be understood and recognized. For so many years, I have been trying to pry into the truth of chaos by sucking the death of others. Unfortunately, I could only see the depths and did not dare to step into it. Only that kid, Alex, has been to the bottom of chaos. In that place, even some of the noble mantis demons with the word undying in their names will die. Commander Alex. The old man took off his mask, revealing his eyes that were completely dyed black and withered due to the long period of prying into chaos. He continued to explain, the chaos zone built in the deepest part of the tower prison is not the real chaos. Instead, Alex spent a lot of points to borrow the death domain from the Destiny realm. If you carry out death-related training here, you will be able to cross that line faster and touch chaos faster. At the same time, the Suicide Knights have also used this space to secretly form the most dangerous special force in the Holy City, the Primordial Chaos. If your performance is good, you may be selected. Special Force, the Primordial Chaos. I have said enough. Go down. Kid who is favored by the Raven God. Thank you, Deputy Commander Stern, for leading the way, Splash. Han Dong dived into it with a standard dive. There was not a single splash of water. Han Dong, who was immersed in it, felt a sense of death that he had never felt before. It was as if there was a hand trying to pull Han Dong across that line. Even in the state of the Death Crowmen, it only slowed down the process. It started from the feet. Nails, skin, blood vessels, and tissues all decayed, rotted, and dissolved in the lake water in a short time. There was no resistance and no way to return to the shore. The perfect clown body that he had just obtained in Dry Town was also broken. The G-virus-infected arm with infinite potential. No matter how it induced cell aberration, it could not slow down the occurrence of real death. When only a left arm and a head were left, the disguise was broken. The mummy's left arm wrapped in rags was revealed. This arm was immersed in the lake water, but it did not immediately disintegrate like the other parts of the body. Instead, a large amount of yellow sand separated from the surface and slowly reflected a horrifying face of a priest on the surface of the lake. It resisted the erosion of the primordial chaos. Deputy Commander Stern, who stood on the shore, stared at this scene. His originally shriveled eyes were slightly brighter. Oh, the arm of the undead. It can resist the first time it enters the water? No wonder Alex valued this young man so much. Maybe he can really become the second Grim Reaper. However, this young man is not as pure as Alex. There are too many impurities in his body. These impurities are even higher than the level of death. Stern turned to stare at the intact head in the lake water. Unlike the left arm that released yellow sand to resist death, this head immersed in the Black Lotus Lake did not disintegrate at all. It remained absolutely intact. Just like that, a head connected to a mummy's arm sank to the bottom of the lake. Stern also reported the information that Nicholas had successfully entered the Chaos Zone to his superior. Chapter 760. Just as Stalvin said, Tal Prison Chaos Zone originated from the Destiny space. Since Captain Alex met the following two conditions. 1. He held shares in the Underworld node. 2. He was a veteran Destiny participant. On this basis, he spent a lot of points to exchange a Black Lotus from the Destiny space. This created the Chaos Zone, at the bottom of the Tal prison. The Black Lotus was the foundation of the entire Tal prison and the source of all the death energy. It was also the breathing source of the undead in the prison area. If the rumors were true, these undead responsible for guarding the prison were the fallen knights who died in the Tau prison. At the cost of death, the Black Lotus would purify the soul and transform the fallen knights into an individual who would no longer be affected by pollution. But they could only live in the area covered by the Black Lotus and serve Captain Alex and Chaos forever. However, in the decades since the establishment of the Hotel prison, some otherworldlings had naturally been born inside. In the prison area supported by broken stone pillars hundreds of meters high, there was no boundary due to the influence of space folding. In the depth, a group of weirdos was whispering. A human wearing broken prison clothes and an iron collar suddenly stood up. His eyes, ears, and mouth were permanently sewn up, leaving only a hooked nose wrapped in iron. He seemed to smell a different smell in the air. Immediately after, a strange sound came from his nostrils. It seems that an outsider has come. It's not the smell of Old Man Stalvin. There's a new prisoner? A curious young boy's voice came from the dark. It doesn't smell like the dead, and it's different from us. Strange, why did Captain Alex let an outsider come here? Could it be that the document has been approved by the higher-ups? Will we continue to serve the sacred city? Don't think too much. Maybe it's just a different cellmate. According to the old rules, one of us will go and greet him. Last time it was Gus. This time it should be Lisa's turn, right? When the name Lisa was mentioned, in a dark corner, the sound of nails scraping metal slowly stopped. Click, click, click. The sound of metal armor colliding due to individual activities was heard. Squeak, squeak. Sound of metal scraping. Dragging some kind of heavy metal, the chaos prisoner named Lisa set off. In the absolute darkness of consciousness, a black lotus with a faint white outline appeared. Han Dong abruptly sat up from the cold ground. After looking around, he immediately looked at his own body. In his memory, when his body fell into the lake, he was attacked by an indescribable feeling of death. It was as if there was a pair of hands pulling him into the abyss of chaos. At the final juncture, the immortal characteristic hidden in his left arm was fully unleashed, allowing Han Dong to resist death and sink to the bottom of the lake. This is the lowest level of Tar Prison, the Chaos Zone? Because my body had been in the lake for a long time, I had completely adapted to the environment here. However, if one were to encounter danger here, it would still be fatal. Once injured, the wound would rapidly expand due to the influence of death, and it was almost impossible to heal. It was also difficult for Togu and Nico to provide assistance in such a place, of course, just as Deputy Commander Stalvin had said, practicing death here would yield twice the results with half the effort. Before the arrival of the Great Expedition, it was necessary to deepen the understanding and use of death. Let's do a preliminary exploration of the Chaos Zone. After some investigation, Han Dong found that apart from the dilapidated and infinitely extending stone pillars, about 5 meters apart from each other, there were basically no other buildings. In other words, the space below was chaotic and overlapping, and he had been going around in circles. After a period of observation, Han Dong found that the lines engraved on the surface of each stone pillar had subtle differences. There should be a pattern. He had to find the pattern between the stone pillars to be able to determine the correct direction. So that's how it is. It's just a simple order of direction and an increasing and decreasing relationship. It's less difficult than the secret pavilion. Just as Han Dong found the right direction and prepared to go deeper into the Chaos Zone. Squeak! The sound of heavy metal being dragged could be heard. It seemed to be far away. Just as Han Dong looked in the direction of the sound, he saw nothing. Squeak! A second dragging sound could be heard. It was at least 100 meters closer than the first time, but the source of the sound was in a completely different direction. This change made Han Dong a little uneasy. He immediately released a large number of crows to investigate the surroundings. However, just as hundreds of crows spread out, squeak, the third sound. The sound was abnormally loud and came from behind him. Immediately, a tentacle shot out from Han Dong's palm and touched the crows that had just been released. Then, the crows simultaneously shot out a tentacle and touched the stone pillar 5 meters away. Void transfer whoosh. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong had moved to the position of the stone pillar. At the same time, a heavy sword about 4 meters long and glowing with dark light suddenly slashed down. The blade had no edge. Its effect was more like a heavy hammer. Boom! The ground within 100 meters was trembling, and the stone pillar was also shaking. The surface of the place where Han Dong was originally standing was completely shattered. At the same time, there was still a thick death aura left on the ground. If he was hit by this sword, even Han Dong would be doomed. The main body that wielded this terrifying heavy sword was not a giant, nor was it an individual with a strong physique. It was a human knight wrapped in light knight armor and wearing a sealed black iron helmet. From the figure revealed by the tight light armor, it seemed to be a female knight. He continued to observe. The surface of this heavy sword was engraved with a large number of blasphemous words. The engraving method was very rough. It seemed that after the heavy sword was forged, the user used his own nails to engrave the words for a long time. There were still a lot of nail marks of different depths around it. The entire heavy sword exuded a strong death aura, a kind of death aura unique to prisoners in the Chaos Zone. There was another characteristic, which was the fundamental reason why the delicate female knight could wield the heavy sword. Except for the hand holding the heavy sword tightly. Between the gaps of the armor covering the palm, there were fleshy red whiskers with muscle lines. It was like the combination of human characteristics and outer city tentacles. Fallen Knight. Captain Alex spent a lot of money to create the Chaos Zone at the bottom of Tar Prison. Is it to create such a special death army? Chapter 761. He stared at the mixture of muscles and tentacles. The words, Fallen Knight, immediately appeared in Han Dong's mind. However, this Fallen Knight was fundamentally different from Han Dong. The tentacles that Han Dong used had not been mixed with anything, and they had existed since the beginning of time. However, the female knight in front of him who wielded the heavy sword with her tentacles became like this. This female knight must have been deeply contaminated. Even the Holy See could not do anything about it. This kind of contamination touched the soul and talent tree, causing the foundation of the individual to change. The body has a mixed tentacle situation. According to common sense, an individual who has been contaminated will have an indefinite corruption of consciousness, body, and even soul. They will completely break away from the human form. Could it be that the corruption on this female knight was resisted to a certain extent? Without waiting for Han Dong to think more, the female knight's second sword was already swinging. Facing such an opponent, plus it was Han Dong's first time in the Chaos area. He did not dare to be careless and immediately took out his staff. He held the staff in his right hand. His left hand made an upward movement. Sand wall. Due to the combination of the staff and the first layer of the talent, dark knowledge, the wall reached a height of 10 meters. It was made of black sand crystals. On the surface, other than the scarab mark, there was a dog-headed human figure. Even Han Dong felt a little strange. He only used a very common sand wall technique. Han Dong stared at his mummified left arm. He faintly felt that it was stronger than before. Also, why did the sand wall in front of him have more patterns? Due to the appearance of the dog-headed human figure, the hardness of the sand wall and the density of the death aura increased. Strange. Could it be that Chaos Area has an amplification effect on death magic? However, even so, it can't block this sword. This female knight is not at the same level as those garbage knights who were addicted to blood wine in the Scarlet Manor. Not only brute force, there is also a strange death energy mixed in the heavy sword. Blasphemy. When the heavy sword touched the surface of the sand wall, not only did it have an effect, the blasphemous words on the surface also emitted a strange aura. It caused the closely packed black sand crystals to disintegrate. Bang! With a swing of the heavy sword, the 10-meter-high sand wall instantly collapsed. However, Han Dong was not behind the sand wall. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover that there was a gray tentacle as thick as a blood vessel embedded in the cracks on the ground, extending behind the heavy knight Lisa. Han Dong had used this move many times. The sand wall looked like a defensive barrier, but its main purpose was to block their vision. Then, it used its tentacles to sneak behind the target and used void shift. Opportunity. However, in the face of such a sneak attack, Heavy Knight Lisa still responded immediately. Since he had just swung his heavy sword and shattered the sand wall in front of him, he could not instantly withdraw his attack and turn 180 degrees to attack Han Dong, who was behind him. In an instant, Lisa made an unimaginable gesture. She, who was originally wielding the heavy sword with both hands, suddenly removed her left hand from the sword and relied only on her right arm to control the huge sword. This way, her left hand could be used to deal with the sneak attack behind her. His left hand did not directly deliver palm strikes or punches. Instead, he reached into his body. She took out a piece of parchment from her corset. She quickly turned around. The parchment full of blasphemous scriptures was directly displayed in front of Han Dong. The scriptures on the parchment not only had the effect of pollution, but the most important thing was that it was a kind of spiritual blasphemy. It could cause individuals who witnessed the scriptures at close range to have a brain disintegration situation. Even the hybrid demons were no exception. But no matter how distorted the scriptures on the parchment were, how it emitted the aura of death and spiritual invasion. Han Dong, who looked directly at it at close range, did not have any change in expression. Instead, because the blasphemous scriptures stimulated the brain's defense line, Han Dong's face showed a sick smile. Han Dong's brain's defense line was indestructible. Ha ha ha! Strange crazy laughter spread in the chaos prison area. Spiritual blasphemy was nullified. Such a scene directly made Lisa, who was wearing a black iron helmet, tilted her head slightly, indicating that she could not understand. Immediately after, Han Dong, who had a smile on his face, waved his palm. It looked like an ordinary palm. In fact, the entire right arm had completed the full activation of the G-virus, and through partial demonic transformation, the arm was fully enhanced. Every inch of the arm under the sleeve was composed of closely arranged tentacles, and there was also a GI as the core driver. Ghoul arm, virus modified, increase has reached 500%. If it was in the past, Han Dong's weak body would not be able to withstand it. Now Han Dong had obtained the perfect black vortex torso from Pennywise, from the inner chapter, and the total load and adaptability had greatly increased. Coupled with the unlimited potential of the G-virus and the transformation of the body under the demonic transformation state. To a certain extent, he had achieved a different kind of close combat mage. He did not use Blood Dog, just a pure physical palm attack. Dang! The palm hit. A crisp sound echoed in the current area, and the heavy black iron helmet rolled to the ground. White wavy curls, dull and turbid like the eyes of the dead, and a mature female face full of blasphemous words. The facial features were the same as humans, and there were no signs of degeneration at all. The outcome was clear. However, when Han Dong looked up, he found that the blasphemy ape was hovering about 20 centimeters above his head. Although he was not afraid of the scriptures, the blasphemy ape was another matter. A drop of cold sweat flowed down the side of his ear. At this time, a familiar voice came from the darkness. Not bad. You have just arrived and you have already adapted to the chaos area, and defeated the blasphemer. Lisa. When she heard the voice, Lisa immediately knelt on one knee and inserted the épée into the ground to show the highest respect. Han Dong also knelt on one knee. The death aura scattered in the space gathered towards a certain point and slowly built the death clone of Captain Alex, pure gas. Captain Alex! The two shouted in unison. Since Lisa and Nicholas met first, you will take him to familiarize him with the fallen chaos area for a while. Yes, Captain. Alex tilted his head and looked at Han Dong and whispered, Nicholas, you should have seen the uniqueness of the chaos area. Releasing or training death-related abilities, here will be twice the result with half the effort. Defeating Lisa is considered as passing the test. Next, until the other knights complete the will and courage test, I hope you can gain something in the chaos area. Remember, when you were soaking in the chaos pool, it was your left arm that allowed you to sink to the bottom. After saying that, Alex took out something that belonged to Han Dong and threw it over. It was the Egyptian female corpse, from the Destiny space, the new mummy, that should have been stored in the secret word Knights. This indirectly showed that Captain Hugo was fully aware of this matter. Thank you, Captain Alex. Han Dong had an indescribable feeling of gratitude in his heart. After all, he did not choose to join the Knights of Destiny, but Alex still cared and helped him. The death aura dissipated and the clone disappeared. Captain Alex's guest, sit up, the two who were fighting to the death just now. The scene changed. Han Dong sat cross-legged on the surface of the épée with the blasphemer. Lisa carried it on her shoulder and walked into the depths. Chapter 762. Han Dong, who was sitting on the heavy sword, was completely relaxed. He recalled the battle and Captain Alex's warning. Then, he looked at the female Egyptian corpse that was also lying flat on the surface of the heavy sword, as well as his mummified left arm. I used the most basic sand wall spell just now. But what I created was a black sand wall that I had never seen before. Not only did it increase my magic level and the power of death, but it also incorporated the attributes of ancient Egypt. Could it be that the immersion in the pool of chaos and the invasion of real death made the original ability of Imhotep become stronger? Looks like I have to make good use of this time. Maybe, even if I don't enter the Destiny world of Mummy, I still have a chance to level up this arm. Of course, Han Dong was not in a hurry. The test of will and courage was an important part of the Great Expedition's selection process. It took a lot of manpower and resources to set the test in Tal Prison. It would take at least 10 days to half a month, which was more than enough time for Han Dong to train in the zone of chaos. Thinking of this, Han Dong looked at the female knight wearing the black iron helmet. He wanted to ask about the things below. However, a female voice came from under the black iron helmet first. She asked before Han Dong could. Why are you not affected by the blasphemy scripture? As she spoke, Lisa took out the parchment that was hidden in her bra and pointed at the exclusive equipment. Han Dong was still staring at the parchment with a smile. He did not react at all. Well, I did a lot of homework on the brain. I focused on the protection of the mind to make sure that the brain is not affected by the mind from the outside world. It was the first time Lisa met an individual who was not affected by her blasphemy scripture. Even if it was someone more powerful than Lisa in the zone of chaos, it was impossible for them to do so. You are very special. No wonder Captain Alex gave you special treatment and let you come down here as a living person. Living person? Could it be you guys? Han Dong had suspected this from the very beginning. Whether it was the battle just now or the current contact, Han Dong didn't sense a single trace of a living person's aura. Yes, all the knights that are active in the Chaos Zone are dead people. We can only live within the coverage of the Black Lotus. Once we leave, we will die immediately. As she spoke, Lisa took the initiative to reveal her neck under her armor. There was a circle of obvious rope marks on it, as well as the black lotus mark that Han Dong had seen in the lake. Lisa continued, "We are the losers. In the battle against the hybrid demons, we were deeply contaminated. We should have died. However, Commander Alex gave us a chance. Using death as the price, in exchange for the purification of their consciousness, they can continue living in the Chaos region as the dead. I don't think that all the contaminated knights could be transformed smoothly, right?" Han Dong asked. "Yes. The fallen knights that were judged as unpurifiable by the Holy See will not receive any form of purification. They will be directly escorted to the Tao prison, where they will never see the light of day for the rest of their lives. Most of them will completely degenerate during the dark period of imprisonment. They will lose their human form and their last bit of humanity. Because the knights themselves already have a mature strength system, once they degenerate, they will become hybrid demons. This portion of the knights who become hybrid demons will become the experimental subjects of the Holy City. The scientists under the command of the investors will conduct confidential research to deepen their understanding of the process of degeneration and the nature of the hybrid demons. Only a few of us knights can maintain our sense of self under the situation of deep contamination. Even if we are brainwashed by the whispers outside the city, all day long, we still maintain our humanity. However, the degeneration of the physical body is inevitable, so during this process, the attributes outside the city flow into the talent tree. At this time, Commander Alex found us, who had completely degenerated but were still struggling to hold on. He gave us the right to die. I chose, hang yourself. After the physical body is completely dead, Deputy Commander Stalvin will throw us into the pool of chaos and form an eternal connection with the Black Lotus. We will wash away the contamination in our consciousness and be reborn in the chaos region as the dead. I see. The doubts that existed in Han Dong's heart were completely solved. Then, he thought of a question. What will happen if a living person is thrown in? The Black Lotus is a product of the boundary of death, chaos. A living person who comes into contact with it will die immediately. Could it be that you were not sent by Commander Alex? You sank in through the pool of chaos? Hearing this, Han Dong was shocked and thought of the scene of his body being disassembled. Oh my God, if it wasn't for the undying attribute of my left arm, would I really have died? Did Commander Alex want to kill me in the beginning? Was it because he wasn't chosen in the night assembly? Han Dong thought of this and felt a lingering fear. He looked at his left arm. It seems that it was because of the opportunity of coming into contact with the Black Lotus that not only did I not die, but it also stimulated the potential of this arm. Commander Alex shouldn't be so stingy. He must have considered this in advance. Han Dong had no choice but to comfort himself like this. Next, they continued to explore deeper. The content of the conversation gradually involved the background of a blasphemer. Lisa graduated from the Knight Academy's Crusader Major. She majored in heavy weapons and had unique experience in using various types of heavy weapons. Later on, she was selected into the Lionheart Knights with the result of number 23. About 13 years ago, Lisa was following the Knights on a small expedition when she encountered a strange heretic. The preliminary investigation found that this group of heretics was just transformed from ordinary humans. Lisa and 2 other ordinary knights were sent to deal with them. However, there was a hybrid demon hidden among the heretics. Blasphemer. Winoxus. Because of the blockade trap, there was nowhere to escape and there was no way to contact the main force. Even if they finally killed the hybrid demon, Lisa was affected by the incurable blasphemy. When the main force found her, more than 50% of her body had been distorted. The surface of her skin was branded with profane words that could not be removed. Just like this, they chatted. Finally, they passed through the stone pillar area of the Chaos Prison and came to the place where the dead gathered. The scene in front of them was completely unexpected. Where is the prison that we talked about? What appeared in Han Dong's vision was not a closely arranged prison. Instead, it was a stone village. The regular bungalow buildings were all piled up with large stones. If one looked down from the sky, they would find that the stone village was arranged in the shape of a lotus. There were hundreds of strange-looking villagers living in the village. They were all dead like Lisa. They were fallen knights who adhered to the beliefs of humans until death. Chapter 763. Black Lotus Stone Village. Han Dong, who was sitting on the giant sword, had a better view. Judging from the number of stone bungalows, there should be over 100 chaos dead living here. At the entrance of the village stood a dead man wearing an iron collar. He looked like a prisoner on death row. His eyes, ears, and mouth were permanently sewn shut. Only his iron-inlaid nose was still performing the corresponding function. It was this person who smelled Han Dong's scent. He was also the village chief, the person in charge of the Black Lotus Stone Village. In addition, there were other dead people standing beside the village chief. One of them was wrapped in a white robe. To be exact, the white robe was growing on this person's body. The connective tissue between the robe and the body could be clearly seen. Even the material of the robe was slowly assimilated into real human skin. Her hands were clasped in front of her chest in a praying position. She looked like a pure nun in her 20s, but her body exuded a unique white death aura. Han Dong could see the mixed part in the nun's mouth through the X-ray effect of his magic eye. Lisa's mixed part was her arm muscles, which helped her wield the blasphemy-heavy sword easily. The nun's mixed part was her tongue. Her tongue had evolved into many fleshy white tissues in her mouth, which allowed her to utter a terrifying prayer. The prayer released by this nun also had a purifying effect. However, it was a method of internal death, which completely killed the contaminants and individual cells to complete the purification. To some extent, it was better than conventional purification, but it would also put the person being purified at great risk. It was similar to chemotherapy. She was called the Nun of Pain. In addition, there was also a very tall dead man standing here. He was about 5 meters tall. With the super-heavy steam exoskeleton armor on his body, he was the largest villager in the village. Due to the influence of corruption, this steam knight's body and the equipment he was equipped with had a synchronized corruption situation. As a result, his body was integrated with all kinds of machinery. In the chaos area, there was a steam behemoth that was exclusive to him. 1. 5 thick metal tubes extended from his back and connected to the back of his bald head. 2. It was equipped with a humongous and exaggerated brass pauldron that was even taller than the knight's head. 3. The exoskeleton steam armor was connected through a soft metal strip that resembled blood vessels and various secret gears. Thus, it was 100% compatible with the body's movements without any delay. 4. The front arm is about twice the size of the back arm. In addition to the impact iron fist equipped with a steam hydraulic device, the inside of the arm is also equipped with a heavy firearm. It can fire bullets continuously or a single howitzer. It can even be modified with a flamethrower. There was something strange about this dead steam knight. He did not release death aura like the other chaos undead. This person turned the death gas into a steam power source, forming a unique steam death gas, which was optimally recycled between the armor and the body's internal circulation system. At the same time, the knight's exoskeleton armor also had some small hole structures. Every time he killed an enemy on the battlefield, he would grow a kind of tentacle that was embedded with metal and had a suction port through the small hole structure, quickly extracting the aura of death from the dead enemy. As long as he entered the battlefield, he would become more and more courageous, until the last part of his body could no longer function. Finally, there was a chaos undead of the magic class floating behind the village chief. He should be from the Knights of Misfortune or the Knights of Sorcerer when he was alive. He was wearing a shabby black linen robe, and his exposed body was covered with bandages. However, drops of oily substance could still be seen seeping out from the bandages. There was a pool of oil stain under his body. The black oil would bubble on its own, and even some tentacles would occasionally drill out. His head seemed to have been soaked in oil for a long time. His skin was smooth and shiny, and his curly black hair was full of moist oil stains. He held an oil lamp in one hand. He held an eternal torch in the other hand. It seemed to be a pair of matching magic artifacts. Even the death gas emitted had a smell of cooking oil. This chaos undead could cast an extremely rare oil magic, and then ignite it with a torch. It could produce a kind of black death flame. Compared to fire magic of the same level, it was several times more lethal. In the chaos area, he was called Oil Master. This person wrapped his whole body in bandages, first, to absorb oil, and second, to keep his body intact. Such an oily body would probably collapse like a wax figure with a light touch. With the above 4 images of the village chief, Nun of Pain, Steam Behemoth, and Oil Master, one could probably imagine what kind of strange scene it was in Lotus Stone Village. Staring at this group of strange fallen knights, Han Dong had a rather warm feeling. Even if the camouflage effect provided by the faceless head was removed, he could still live here normally. On the smooth oval head, there was only a smiling face drawn with a watercolor pen. One hand was withered and shriveled, and the other hand had a swollen and deformed eyeball, dragging on the ground. There were also black vortex circles drawn on the body. His image was almost the same as this group of dead people. But thinking about it carefully, to some extent, Captain Alex was somewhat similar to Han Dong. They were both raising pets. Han Dong just secretly stored 3 servants in his mind, and Miss Chen-Li was also sent to the Destiny Space to gain experience. Captain Alex was very good. With his authority as the captain and the management of Tal Prison, he cultivated the servants of the dead at the bottom of the prison. Moreover, they were carefully selected from the surface prison, and they were all elite knights with willpower that could resist the complete fall of the fallen. The gap between people was really too big. Staring at the situation in the Black Lotus Stone Village, Han Dong imagined the moment when he collided with the hybrid demon army in the core territory of the Old King during the Great Expedition in the future. Captain Alex killed the enemy alone, and a black lotus appeared in his palm, and an exciting scene of hundreds of chaos dead gushed out in an instant. However, Han Dong stared at this group of dead people who used to belong to various night orders. He suddenly thought of a problem, and a lot of cold sweat immediately appeared on his back. By the way, if I die in the pool of chaos, then wouldn't I become a chaos dead just like them? Since I'm dead, it's equivalent to automatically leaving the secret word knights. In the way of death, I'll join the ultimate knights. The purpose of deliberately arranging for me to go to the Chaos Zone was not to cultivate, but to do this? Hiss. Han Dong laughed awkwardly and patted his left arm. Fortunately, he held on. Just like that. Knight Lisa explained the reason to the village chief. Hearing that Han Dong was Captain Alex's guest, the village chief immediately showed extraordinary enthusiasm and arranged a separate residence for Han Dong. In the next few days in the Chaos Zone, the blasphemer, Lisa, who held a heavy sword, would continue to be Han Dong's maid, serving and leading Han Dong to familiarize himself with the environment here. Chapter 764. Han Dong was still sitting on Ms. Lisa's heavy sword and entered the Black Lotus village. The identity of a living person immediately attracted the attention of the strange-looking villagers. However, Lisa could be regarded as a high-ranking existence among the villagers, and Han Dong himself also exuded a pestilence of death aura. The villagers who lived here were all experienced knights. Naturally, they could guess the special identity of Han Dong and immediately accepted this outsider. A soft voice came from under Lisa's black iron helmet. Generally speaking, for the new deceased, the village chief will arrange for people to build a new stone house. You, on the other hand, are here as a living visitor, and will only be staying here for a period of time. Just live in my house and I'll serve you. Is that okay? It's a great honor for Captain Alex to dedicate himself and assign tasks for me. During this time, I'll play my role as a maid. If Mr. Nicholas needs anything, you can ask me directly. Okay, after a while, Han Dong came to the residence of Ms. Lisa. In terms of architecture, the Black Lotus Village seemed to be under some restrictions. They could only build simple single-story bungalows. 1 living room, 1 bedroom, and no bathroom. After all, the deceased didn't need to eat or excrete. As long as they were in the coverage of the Black Lotus, they could exist forever. After returning to the house, Lisa then took off the thick black iron helmet. The reason why she needed to wrap herself tightly with a knight's light armor and a black iron helmet was that the blasphemous words engraved on Lisa would also affect other villagers. But Han Dong was absolutely immune to such blasphemy. When the two were alone, Lisa didn't have to worry about the blasphemy problem. Ignoring the blasphemous words, Miss Lisa had a face that could be considered to be above average under her white curly hair. She gave off the feeling of an English lady. She was about 30 years old. With her death, her appearance was completely fixed. Ms. Lisa, do you have a place to practice death here? Han Dong asked while pointing to the Egyptian female corpse standing at the door. Yes, but it's very dangerous and easy to be attacked. Han Dong looked puzzled. Attack? Wasn't this the space created by Captain Alex? Could it be that other than you, there are other dead beings living here? Well, everyone is not living a peaceful life here. The aura of death in the air cannot support our bodies. Every once in a while, they would need to form a fixed team of 4 and head to the most dangerous area, the ancestral mansion. From there, they would obtain a type of crystal that contained the chaotic death aura. Each person can only take 1 crystal stone from the mansion at a time. 1 crystal stone can last us for a month to 5 months. Once they were used up, they would have to go again. There were unimaginably terrifying creatures hidden in the ancestral mansion. Every time they went there, they had to be fully prepared for battle. In our opinion, the reason Captain Alex set up the ancestral mansion is to train us. Even if we die, we can't relax for even a moment. The ancestral mansion? A terrifying life form? Commander Alex was truly generous. He had practically taken out a large portion of the destiny space. Speaking of which, when you encounter these terrifying life forms, will you be killed? When it came to the death of death, Lisa's expression became unsightly. Yes, if we are killed while we are dead, we will lose the last chance that Captain Alex gave us. Everything will disappear and we will be forever erased from this world. Moreover, if we die in the ancestral mansion, our corpses will increase the strength and number of monsters in the mansion. This is also the reason why I attacked you as soon as I found you in the primal chaos zone. Our village will not accept those who are not strong enough and will leave them to fend for themselves in the primal chaos zone. In addition, the creatures in the ancestral mansion are not destiny creatures. We are very clear on this point. Han Dong was also stunned by these words. The Primal Chaos Zone is a special death zone created by the Black Lotus that Captain Alex exchanged from the Destiny space. Apart from Destiny creatures, what else could there be? Could it be that there are hybrid demons or their descendant? The creatures hiding in the mansion are the hybrid demons. The powerful hybrid demons that were once killed by the death god Scythe were also taken into the Black Lotus by the captain. Through a special method, they were imprisoned in the dark side of the ancestral mansion. When we are searching for death crystals, we might accidentally touch the vase and release the hybrid demons inside. It is also possible that when we open a door, we will directly enter a domain controlled by the hybrid demons. In the mansion, any form of interaction, may release the hybrid demons sealed in the dark side. Of course, killing them will also drop high-purity death crystals that are enough for us to eat for a long time. The reason why it is dangerous is because these hybrid demons are powerful existences that the captain personally killed. They are at least mature and each of them is sinister and cunning. They are extremely difficult to deal with. After hearing this, Han Dong muttered to himself, Senior Alex is indeed worthy of being the #1 person in the Holy City. Not only is his strength top-notch, but he is also secretly carrying out so many actions. Even the primal chaos zone, which was created to select talents, is still set up as a place where knights and hybrid demons oppose each other. It allows the dead to maintain a high intensity of training and be prepared to fight for the Holy City at any time. Speaking of which, these death crystals that provide for the dead to survive may also be of great use to my training. Moreover, the dead hybrid demons in the mansion are also very good tonic. Thinking of this, Han Dong quickly asked, Miss Lisa, when will you go to the ancestral mansion? I originally planned to go today because I have already used up all the death crystals on me. However, delaying it for a day is not too big of a problem. Today, I will serve Mr. Nicholas. It is not too late to go to the mansion tomorrow. After saying this, Lisa took off her knight's light armor without any scruples, revealing her perfectly proportioned figure that was only wearing a corset. However, Han Dong's gaze was on the Egyptian female corpse at the door and he continued to say, How about this? Let's go together tomorrow? As soon as he said this, Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. In her opinion, Nicholas was a living person and did not need to consume death crystals to survive. He did not need to go to such a dangerous place. It will be very dangerous. I believe that Miss Lisa has been there many times. With an experienced person like you leading the way, I believe that it will be more smooth. Lisa responded in a rather low voice. It is because I have been there many times. This time it will be more dangerous. Do you really want to go? Han Dong decisively nodded in affirmation and continued to say, Isn't there still some time today? Tell me in detail about your previous experience in the ancestral mansion. It should not be a problem to prepare in advance. After all, I can be considered to have won against Miss Lisa. All right. Lisa reached out and pointed to her bedroom. Then let's go to bed and talk. Why do we have to go to bed? Isn't the job of a maid to warm the master's bed? Where did you learn this strange knowledge? Chapter 765. On the first day of the Black Lotus village in the Chaos Zone, Knight Lisa explained the basic situation of the ancestral mansion and some of their past experiences. One thing was certain. These fiends who had lost their lives under the scythe of the Grim Reaper in the past, after being imprisoned in the mansion through death resurrection, their strength had become stronger and it was even harder to kill them. Lisa mentioned some very important information. First, the root of the Chaos Zone Black Lotus seemed to be hidden in the deepest part of the dungeon of the mansion. This also made the mansion the most lifeless area and the closest to the real Chaos Zone. Part of the reason why the hybrid demons were entrenched in the mansion was because of Alex's restraint, and part of the reason was the pure lifeless aura emitted by the Black Lotus that they desired. It was rumored that if there was a life in the Chaos Zone that could touch the Black Lotus, they would get a real chance to be reborn. Although most knights were satisfied to be able to get rid of the influence of the fallen and continue to stay in the Chaos Zone to serve Captain Alex as a dead person, everyone more or less wanted to return to the Holy City as a normal person and live their original life. Second, the danger of the mansion. Captain Alex made a special setting in the mansion to prevent the occurrence of the Instance Dungeon. 1. Only one team of fallen knights was allowed to explore the mansion at a time. 2. During each exploration, the internal structure and layout of the mansion would change. There was no rule to follow. 3. The mansion covered a large area. In addition to the mansion itself, there were many areas with different styles. Before entering, one needed to choose the difficulty. If one chose a low difficulty area many times, one would not be able to get the death crystal. At present, Lisa had reached level 3. She could explore the mansion itself and the core area of other scenes. This was also the reason why Lisa was reluctant when Han Dong proposed to go to Ancestral Mansion. Even if Han Dong was more powerful, if he wanted to survive in the mansion exploration, strength was only a part of it. Another indispensable part was experience. However, after a series of chit-chat on the bed, Han Dong still managed to convince Miss Lisa forcefully. The only problem left was team formation. A stone bedroom lit by candles. The bed was made of simple flat stones, and there was only a layer of rough and thin raw material on top of it. However, for the deceased in the Black Lotus village, this was a very luxurious mattress. Since Miss Lisa had made such a strong request to have a follow-up conversation in bed, Han Dong couldn't refuse. A little to the left. Yes. Since he had just changed his body and hadn't asked little brother Demps for a massage for a long time, Han Dong felt that his body was a little stiff. Taking advantage of such a great opportunity, Han Dong lay on the bed. While Miss Lisa provided a massage service, they communicated with each other about their teammates' problems. Different areas of the mansion have different environmental factors and hybrid demon characteristics. The teams aren't fixed. However, I also have a group of companions that I often work with. They are the group of people that I met at the entrance of the village. Of course, that doesn't include the village chief. Furthermore, the size of the team could not exceed 4 people. If too many people gather together, the dense aura of death that they emit will easily disturb the hybrid demons in the dark side. Shouldn't there be too many people? Why don't we go with just the 2 of us? In Han Dong's opinion, he only needed the experienced and obedient Miss Lisa to lead the way. It would make the operation more convenient. 2 people will die. Moreover, the village chief won't agree. Lisa's massage immediately slowed down. Ever since she came to the Chaos region until now, she had never had the experience of exploring with a 2-person team. If the village chief agrees, then it's fine, right? Yes. Then we'll ask the village chief tomorrow. Let's call it a night. Rest early. Miss Lisa knelt on the stone bed. With one hand, she played with her white wavy curls, and the other hand, she patted the empty space on the bed. With a serious face, she stared at Han Dong, who was about to leave. Where are you going? Aren't you going to sleep together? I'm already very grateful that Miss Lisa can serve me like this. There's no need to sleep. If one day Miss Lisa can leave this place and return to the Holy City, I'll treat you to a meal. Ha ha! A rare and somewhat helpless laughter was heard. Leave. I'm already very satisfied to be able to live here. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Good night. Good night. Han Dong returned to the living room alone. He stared at the Egyptian female corpse placed on the side and temporarily stored it in a portable prison. Then, he used crows and yellow sand to create a single bed that fit his body. He immediately fell asleep. Death cultivation would wait until he arrived at the mansion where risk and opportunity coexisted. The next day, at the entrance of the village, different from the conventional village chief, the village chief of the Black Lotus village stayed at the entrance of the village 24 hours a day. His sense of smell was the strongest in the village. He could not only smell the new dead, but also warn some dead who left the mansion and tried to come to the village to hunt. After Han Dong proposed the idea of forming a 2-person team with Miss Lisa, the village chief only did a test on perception ability. Lisa was inclined to the combat type, and her perception was very weak. Every team that went to the Ancestral Mansion must have a perception ability user. The village chief asked, "Today, there is a team returning from the cave area of the mansion. How much information can you sense about this team from here?" Unexpectedly, Han Dong didn't answer at all. Instead, he used a tentacle with ink to draw on a slate next to the village chief. He directly drew the situation of this team in 10 seconds, including the team members' expressions, movements, and even some abnormal injuries, as expected of a special talent approved by the leader. Then, you and Miss Lisa will form a 2-person team to explore the mansion. Thank you, village chief. There is one more thing to remind you. As the manager here, I can get in touch with the deputy leader, Sir Stalvin. I just received the news that the assessment time of the prison above will not exceed 15 days. When the time limit is reached, the Tao prison will be closed. You should also need to be in advance. Seize the time yourself. Don't stay in the mansion for too long. Okay. Since the village chief confirmed it, Miss Lisa didn't say anything. Miss Lisa didn't say anything else, and the two of them set off from the hidden path behind the village. At first, the main style of the chaos area was stone, but as they approached the ancestral mansion, the scenery changed. Black flowers and withered trees overflowed with the color of death slowly occupied the main elements. Along the slightly upward slope, a strange mansion built against the mountain came into view. Chapter 766. They went up the mountain path full of dead plants. Just as they saw the outline of the ancient mansion, the mountain path in front of them also led to a fork. Wooden road signs pointing to different directions were set up here. Cave, a lake, forest, ruins. And the mountain path in the center led directly to the ancestral mansion with the heaviest death aura. The mansion was completely different from the other 4 derivative areas. Just standing here, Han Dong could faintly hear the painful cries coming from the mansion. Those hybrid demons who were slashed under the scythe and imprisoned here seemed to be enduring a kind of painful torture, in addition to being trapped here forever. Losing their freedom and rationality made them even crazier. Miss Lisa looked at the outline of the mansion in the distance and whispered, "According to the information of some high-level undead, the purity of the hybrid demons in the mansion is much higher than in other areas. I have never gone to the mansion to look for death crystals." Purity! Yes, Captain Alex, for the hybrid demons who died under his hands, according to their attributes, they were divided into 4 different scenes. At the same time, the hybrid demons with the highest death affinity or the most unique characteristics were left in the mansion. Why don't we choose to explore the non-mansion area? From Lisa's words, it was obvious that she was afraid. This was understandable. After all, death within death meant complete disappearance in the sense of the word. Let's choose the mansion. If we can't defeat the hybrid demons inside, I will take you and escape. As for your need for crystals, I'll just ask Commander Alex to give you some. Since Han Dong said so, as a temporary maid, Lisa couldn't say anything more. As the two of them stepped into the fork, next to the road sign, strands of death aura immediately gathered into a black shadow shrouded in a cloak. All the teams that wanted to go to the mansion and the surrounding area to look for crystals had to be checked by the black shadow in advance. A low voice came from the black shadow. "Blasphemer Lisa, you have already done a basic exploration of the derivative area. This exploration will not be limited by the area. The Lake 2 or Forest 3 is recommended. Entering Ancestral Mansion is not recommended." Miss Lisa, who was warned, turned her head again to look at Han Dong, who was sitting on the heavy sword. However, there was still no hesitation in Han Dong's eyes as he looked straight ahead. Since that was the case, Lisa took out a depleted crystal from her bra. "We choose Ancestral Mansion. This is the crystal that was used up last time." The shadow that took the crystal immediately disappeared. Han Dong asked curiously, Are used-up crystals also a pass?" "That's right. Commander Alex doesn't allow us to frequently enter the mansion to obtain crystals. In addition to the fact that each person is only allowed to carry 1 crystal at a time, we are also required to use up the death aura in the crystal before we can set foot in the mansion area again." Han Dong engraved this setting in his heart. Got it. Half an hour later, the two of them were already standing in front of an unusually large mansion, built in a typical Renaissance style. Semicircular coupons, thick stone walls, circular domes, and horizontal thick eave. However, one of the design of the mansion was quite out of place and strange, the windowless design. The whole mansion was like a huge prison, and the only exit was the mansion's front door that was like the mouth of the abyss, completely open to the outside. The most dense death aura was constantly overflowing from inside, and at the same time, they could clearly hear the voices of various hybrid demons mixed together, as if they were deliberately luring people into the abyss of death. The dead hybrid demons were imprisoned here. The mansion was a prison, which was quite in line with the setting of Tal Prison. While staring at the front door, Lisa's will was also undergoing some kind of test. This area was several times more dangerous than the areas she had been to before. Moreover, this kind of design was also very strange, and was different from the open environment of other derivative areas. Once they entered, it would be difficult to leave. At the same time, Han Dong also received a corresponding warning from the Scarlet Count. You humans' commander-level existences are really terrifying, to actually kill so many existences comparable to this count. Speaking of which, the poor guy imprisoned in the mansion is not simple. Generally speaking, noble mature hybrid demons like us would not make such a loss of self-control sound. It is very likely that these guys who have been tortured by death have completely lost their minds and gone crazy. To a certain extent, they are even more dangerous. I can roughly guess what you want to do, don't be greedy. Otherwise, no one will come to collect our corpses. Don't worry, the mechanism here itself does not allow me to be greedy. Let's give it a try today. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong was already standing at the front door of the mansion, waving at the stunned Lisa. Seeing that Han Dong's expression did not change at all in front of such a strange ancestral mansion, Lisa even forgot that Han Dong was a rookie who had come here for the first time. When the two of them stepped into the mansion's front door together, it did not correspond to the main hall of the mansion, but directly came to a corridor that was about 30 meters long, allowing 3 people to walk side by side. As for the back, it had already turned into a sealed stone wall, and the exit was nowhere to be seen. Just as he stepped through the door, Han Dong could also feel a slight spatial fluctuation. Spatial disorder. Just as Miss Lisa said, every time I come to the mansion area, the internal structure will be disrupted. Currently, they had officially entered the crystal search stage. According to Miss Lisa's experience, they needed to carry out a scene interaction, and the crystal could be hidden anywhere. The bottom of a conspicuous stone, inside a tree hole, inside a creature's body, and so on. Of course, if they touched any conspicuous object in the scene, it was possible to attract the dark side's death hybrid demons. Those with spiritual perception might be able to detect the abnormality in advance, but they could not avoid the arrival of the hybrid demons. In the simple corridor, there were only 3 items that were more conspicuous. 1. A twisted vase that was placed in the recessed wall. 2. A crystal kerosene lamp that was hung in the middle of the corridor. 3. An abstract oil painting that was hung on the right wall, wheat field in the morning. The vase could be condensed with crystals, and so could the kerosene lamp. The back of the oil painting could correspond to a hidden switch, and the corresponding hidden room could also be stored with crystals. Because it was Lisa's first time here, she was not sure how to interact with these props and the specific success rate, and because of the spatial disorder, she did not know where the exit was located. Just as the two of them were thinking of countermeasures. At this moment, come here, a whisper sounded in Han Dong's ears. It was a female voice that was full of primitive temptation, and every word seemed to be able to evoke the deepest desire of a man. Han Dong's eyes glanced at the twisted vase in the recessed wall. From the mouth of the vase, a flawless and tender jade arm grew out, and it was beckoning him with its finger. Chapter 767. Han Dong was the only one who could see the whispers and the seductive scene. Hiding in the dark side of the vase was obviously a hybrid demon that specifically targeted males. However, she had chosen the wrong target this time. Han Dong had been pestered by the Russian girl, Mia, with an excellent figure all year round, and was often surrounded by Nicole, who was as beautiful as a fairy, with her tentacles surrounding his body. For example, Miss Lisa, who was sitting next to him, smelled good. The white-haired, big-eyed woman warmed his bed and massaged his back. Here, it is necessary to correct the depraved thoughts caused by reading this book for a long time. Ride refers to sitting on Miss Lisa's heavy sword to save energy. Miss Lisa. What is the average probability of attracting hybrid demons and obtaining crystals through the interaction between props? Under normal circumstances, conspicuous props have a 5% probability of obtaining crystals and a 15% probability of attracting hybrid demons in the dark side. In addition, there is about a 30% chance that we can obtain clues from the scene props that can help us explore and temporarily replenish our physical strength. Uncrystallized dead liquid. There is even a small probability of obtaining some chaotic equipment deliberately placed by Captain Alex. Most of them require clues or secret passages to reach the secret room where the treasure chest is hidden. There are two remaining situations. 1. Nothing will happen. 2. If the interaction is unsuccessful, it will cause our pressure to increase. Although we signed a contract with the Black Lotus as the Fallen and were reborn, we will no longer be affected by pollution. However, we will still accumulate pressure, even more than before. After successfully completing the exploration, we will also need to return to the town for a more exaggerated pressure release activity. Oh, pressure accumulation? Then it's okay. Pollution and pressure basically didn't exist for Han Dong. Han Dong's brain could withstand a great burden of pressure. He wouldn't feel pressure because of what he saw or heard. On the contrary, Han Dong could make other lives feel psychological pressure. After living in the Holy City for so many years, Han Dong had also felt pressure from outside the city 4 times. The first time was during the incident with the old king in Stuart Manor. The second time was when he had a private conversation with Dempsey's mother. The third time was when he met the president of the Writers' Association, Fake, at the city gate, whose rank was comparable to the old king. The fourth time was when he met a certain old king in the deep sea in his dream. When he met a king-level martial artist or a pseudo-king-level martial artist, there would be pressure. However, Han Dong had just perfected his crazy laughter ability in The Clown Returns not long ago. He could perfectly release pressure at any time, regardless of the venue. In front of him, Han Dong pointed at the twisted enchantment vase with arms. There are some problems with the vase in the passage. I plan to conduct an item interaction. If a hybrid demon was released, it would be a good opportunity for me to test the strength of the hybrid demons in the ancestral mansion. By the way, how should I interact with this vase? As Lisa stared at the vase, she clenched her heavy sword tightly and said in a low voice, "Vases are usually interacted through direct contact or smashing. Of course, there's also this one." Before the experienced Miss Lisa went to the mansion, she collected some flowers and plants by the roadside. Inserting the flower into it will be relatively safer. Let me try. After Han Dong took the flower, he took the initiative to walk towards the vase. The arm that grew from the mouth of the vase began to twist coquettishly. The enchantment voice that reverberated in Han Dong's head also became more intense. However, Han Dong ignored the interference of the arm and gently inserted the flower into the vase. The interaction was successful. For a moment, the enchantment voice no longer existed. The twisting arm no longer hooked its finger at Han Dong, but pointed at the abstract oil painting on the opposite side of the passage. At the same time, because of the interaction, the arm became visible, and Miss Lisa could also see it clearly. The result of such an interaction was obviously beneficial and provided a special clue. Miss Lisa is really experienced. Perhaps it was because the hybrid demon in the vase liked flowers very much, because Han Dong picked the outdoor flowers and gave them to her, stabilizing her crazy emotions and making her willing to provide assistance. Of course, it could also mean something else. Han Dong held the vase and came in front of the oil painting. His palm was placed on a special area on the surface of the painting frame, releasing a unique death aura that dyed the whole oil painting black, and then he pushed it inwards. Vigorous and vigorous. The wall corresponding to the painting frame sank by itself, opening a passage that led to the depths of the mansion. Miss Lisa, what should we do in this situation? The secret passage that is opened due to the interaction of the scene usually corresponds to 3 situations. 1. The depth of the secret passage corresponds to the treasure room, where good quality crystals and even some chaotic materials can be found. 2. The continuous interaction shows that the hybrid demon is interested in you and leads you to the dark area where its main body is located through the secret passage. This kind of hybrid demon that occupies an area alone is often quite powerful. After killing it, it will also drop high-quality crystals or finished equipment. 3. It simply leads you to a deeper area. According to our experience, as long as the state of the team members is good, it is recommended to enter the secret passage. Once you can get high-quality crystals, you can exchange them for a longer rest. If you can get chaotic materials, you can also make better equipment and increase the survival rate of the next trip to the mansion. It's just that the 2 of us. It's okay, let's go. Han Dong was very interested in the chain reaction that had taken place just now. He took the initiative to take Miss Lisa's hand and pulled her into the secret passage. The interior design of the secret passage was somewhat unique. There were a large number of inward-facing platforms between the walls, on which there were various kinds of vases. A hand stretched out from each vase, teasing Han Dong in various ways. Come on, there are big treasures you can't imagine." Similar murmurs echoed in his mind. Such a situation. Han Dong could roughly guess what the situation inside the secret room was like. If he released the crow, it would immediately be killed by the vase's arm. The bright red necklace worn on Han Dong's chest emitted a red light because it sensed danger, and a faint dog's barking echoed in his body. "Miss Lisa, is it possible to encounter a friendly situation where the hybrid demon receives us?" "No, and it's impossible. The hybrid demon that was killed by the leader and trapped here forever is full of hatred for the human knight." Han Dong nodded. "That's true. Be careful, the battle should start soon." "What?" Lisa immediately adjusted the black iron helmet on her face and held the heavy sword tightly. They stepped out of the secret passage. An open secret room of about 200 square meters appeared in front of the 2. Between the walls and the ground were covered with charming pieces of meat. A huge vase made of flesh and blood was in the center of the room. A woman wearing a crown of flesh and blood was embedded in the vase. In her hand was the black flower given by Han Dong. Seeing this demon and such a distorted scene, Miss Lisa immediately showed severe discomfort and the pressure increased. Chapter 768. Sure enough, it's different from the hybrid demons outside the city. The hybrid demons that were killed by Captain Alex were actually reborn in such a way. Their way of existence is also fundamentally different from the fallen knight. A fallen knight like Lisa was purified by the Black Lotus and could move freely in the domain of the Black Lotus. Although she was also somewhat restricted, she still had the most basic freedom. But the hybrid demons here are different. They are no different from prisoners on death row. Magic eye perspective. This hybrid demon that was rooted in the flesh vase because of the meat attribute had a high-purity spherical crystal embedded in its body. It should be the crystal that the villagers of the deceased were pursuing. and this kind of hybrid demon was able to endure such a crystal and was reborn, imprisoned here forever. In the past, the hybrid demons could call the wind and summon the rain in the world. They had independent territories and hundreds of thousands of servants. In the territories they managed, they were the kings. They themselves were the law, and they could freely vent their desires. Now, they had lost everything after being killed by the Grim Reaper. Because of the restriction of the death crystal, they could only move about in 100 square meters of prison. Their freedom was permanently deprived, they couldn't vent any desires, and even their fate was determined. In the end, they could only become the experience points of the fallen knights, with no possibility of turning over for eternity. The drastic change in the situation was enough to make any hybrid demon fall into complete madness. This woman in the vase was the same. She used to plant more than 100 kinds of meat flowers in her manor to satisfy her interest in flower cultivation. Every day, hundreds of male lives would line up in front of her house to provide her with the entertainment of her desires. All of this ended with the swing of the scythe. After being sealed in the ancestral mansion for such a long time, Han Dong was the first man to discover her. Even if Han Dong was classified as a human, she wouldn't mind at all. Compared to killing Han Dong, she would rather have children with Han Dong. However, Miss Lisa, who was following beside Han Dong, was very redundant. For a moment, the charming pieces of meat that crawled all over the room all turned into mud. The secret room directly turned into a meat soup pool. The viscous meat juice greatly restricted the movements of the two people, and from the meat soup, strange flowers of flesh and blood would grow, entangling and sucking the nutrients of the target. The eyes of hatred stared at Miss Lisa. Squeak, squeak, squeak. From the center of the vase, thorn-like tendrils of flesh were released and shot directly at Lisa. At the same time, the eyes under the black iron helmet became firm in an instant. Her hands tightly gripped the hilt. Heavy combat skill, whirlwind slash. Miss Lisa wasn't weak. Squeak, 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 squeak. Squeak, squeak, strands of whisker-like muscles slowly grew out of the armor to assist in holding the sword. Squeak. Squeak, squeak, squeak. 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 The flesh thorns that shot out from between the vases were swept away by the rotating tip of the heavy sword, and were instantly turned into ashes. Borrowing the momentum of such a whirlwind, the moment Lisa's whirlwind slash ended, she followed up with a move from the Lionheart Knight Regiment, Heavy Crush. It was a reckless move that could only be used when one's strength and momentum had reached a certain limit. It could cause huge damage to the target, and it could directly kill low-level targets. After using it, the individual would also need some time to recover and adjust. When the heavy sword of blasphemy smashed down, boom! A burst of aura exploded, and the area in front of him trembled and shook. As a teammate, Han Dong was also affected by the pressure of the heavy crush, and his body sank slightly. Squeak! The hybrid demon woman and the flesh vase attached to her were directly crushed into meat paste without any resistance and scattered in all directions. The power of blasphemy and death was also fully released at this moment. Squeak! 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 The scattered flesh on the ground evaporated and disappeared in a short period of time. However, there was something wrong. It seemed that the woman had been killed and the residue had been eliminated. However, the total amount of flesh and blood in the secret room had only weakened by a small amount. Han Dong smelled the smell of flesh and frowned slightly. Count in his body suddenly jumped out and explained, "No wonder I said the smell was so familiar. You met a troublesome guy as soon as you arrived. A pure flesh attribute hybrid demon. This attribute is very rare even in our inner circle. It is comparable to this Count's Scarlet attribute. The pure flesh attribute has a big characteristic. Its attack power may not be as strong as other hybrid demons of the same level, but it is extremely difficult to kill. It is impossible to win just by relying on this fallen knight's physical attack and blasphemy. Nicholas, lend your body to this count to play with. It will take a lot of effort to kill this flower of flesh. Just assist me. You are really stingy. If you have the ability, don't use this Count's blood dog. No matter how much Count complained in his body, Han Dong's attention was in this space. Just at the moment when Miss Lisa attacked, the crystal that should have been in the hybrid demon's body suddenly disappeared without a trace. From Han Dong's point of view, these hybrid demons had already been killed by Captain Alex once. They were reborn with the crystal, so the crystal was the key to their survival. Strange, where did the crystal go? Thinking of this, Han Dong took out his staff. The staff touched the ground and a black ripple spread out, turning everything into sand. The black sand absorbed all the water and covered the flesh and blood on the ground. But in less than 3 seconds, something else happened. The sand under his feet loosened on a large scale. Flowers of flesh and blood rapidly grew out from the cracks in the sand. There were about 30 of them. When the flower bud grew to a length of 1 meter, the flower bud of flesh and blood quickly bloomed. From the flower bud stepped out a woman with an excellent figure. Her whole body was covered with a regular structure of flesh and blood. She wore a garland of flesh and blood on her head. She looked exactly like the female hybrid demon that just grew in the vase. There were many of them, and each of them emitted a strong aura. Pressure increase. Seeing this scene, Lisa supported her body with her heavy sword and gasped for breath. After returning, Lisa would have to go through a rather stimulating activity to relieve her pressure before she could return to normal. Facing such a large number of enemies, Lisa might be able to crush them all with her heavy sword's continuous slashes and area of effect sweeps. But could she really kill the hybrid demons? Perhaps when the minced flesh scattered on the ground, a new flower of flesh and blood would bloom. At present, more than 30 women of flesh and blood spoke at the same time. The superimposed voice entered Lisa's brain and continued to increase the pressure. The power of blasphemy, the transformation of flesh and blood. What an interesting human. I, Mary Shia, flower of flesh and blood, welcome you. Your body will definitely become the best flesh and blood nourishment. As for your man, leave him to me to bear children. Chapter 769. Facing such a blossoming scene, Miss Lisa broke out in a cold sweat. She couldn't think of a way to kill the enemy. Her attack characteristics were more suitable for dealing with a single target. This kind of flesh attribute, hybrid demon, had tenacious vitality and could create clones in a large area. In Lisa's eyes, she needed to cooperate with the Knights of Plague, the Knights of Sorcerer, or the Knights of Holy Purity to destroy a large area. Otherwise, it would be difficult to kill this kind of target. Miss Lisa, I just saw that there was a crystal in the target's body. What's strange is that when you just crushed the target's body, the crystal suddenly disappeared. But the crystal stones suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Miss Lisa panted as she replied, These hybrid demons are completely dependent on the death crystal. The crystal seems to exist independently in their body, but in fact it can be scattered in different places. Only after they are completely killed, the crystal will fall out. Since they have already died once, it is difficult to kill them a second time. Only a powerful lethal ability can truly send them into the abyss of chaos and completely die. So it's like this. It seems that there is no possibility of taking advantage of the situation. We can only kill them by force. I have a powerful lethal ability here. Miss Lisa, for the next battle, you only need to do one thing. Put away the heavy sword and focus on blasphemy. Some of the fragments that I can't deal with will be given to your blasphemy to help clean up. From the situation just now, blasphemy is still very effective. After saying that, Han Dong stepped forward and stood in front of Miss Lisa. This kind of scene was somewhat out of place. It was as if a magician took the initiative to ask a melee fighter to step back and plan to take the lead. using the staff in his hand to smash the enemy's head. This kind of flesh attribute hybrid demon has low attack power but is extremely difficult to kill. It just so happens that I can test the upper limit of the black vortex body and try the feeling of a close combat magician. As Han Dong stepped forward, the 30 flesh and blood women in front of him were also stunned. The overlapping sound came. You are actually not affected by my charm of meat? What's so good about this kind of woman? She looks very ordinary and can only serve you alone. Come to me, you can have as many as you want. Age, body, voice, they can all be customized by you. Warrior, come quickly. I, Mary Shia, will let you jump out of the shackles of humans and feel unparalleled happiness. For a moment, the 30 women of flesh and blood standing in front of him all changed their appearances. Some of them turned into young girls wearing long muslin dresses. Some transformed into mature women draped in gauze. She opened her arms, wanting Han Dong to give her a loving hug. However, this Mary Shia was not enlightened at all. She did not grasp the key point perfectly. Perhaps if she transformed herself into a cluster of cells, there would be a slight chance that she would attract Han Dong's attention. On Han Dong's side, his gaze did not stop at Mary or Shia at all. Instead, he closed his eyes and entered a focused and devout state. Next, Han Dong pieced together the perfect compatibility of the body of the black vortex to coordinate with different parts of his body and enter a brand new posture. Such a powerful and hard-to-kill fleshly mantis demon was a perfect punching bag. Great God of Netherblood, as the blood oath-bearer, I beg you, please grant me the purest Netherblood energy. Bursts of red light appeared on his chest. The blood oath-bearer's master, Ragorian's Netherblood skull, damaged, that was worn on his chest in the form of a necklace floated out by itself, drip, drip, drip. Blood constantly dripped out from the skull. Before using this epic-grade equipment, the user had to use the identity of the blood oath-bearer to sincerely beg for it. After obtaining this equipment for a few months, Han Dong roughly analyzed that the existence corresponding to the skull could be considered as a demigod in fate. Moreover, if this necklace was complete, its quality would reach the legendary grade that Han Dong had never seen before. By sincerely begging, one could activate the skull and obtain a type of high-grade blood that did not exist in the real world, nether blood. Even Scarlet Count had never seen blood before. Its taste, color, and energy density were all top-notch. According to Count, this nether blood could even be compared to the primordial blood wine that flowed out from the body of its original owner, CHF. However, it just so happened that Count was throwing a tantrum. If not for Count's consciousness helping to construct the bloodhound, the following transformation might have failed. Count, don't be so stingy. Let me borrow your bloodhound. I won't lend it to you. Before, you said that you would lend me your body to play with. Now that this Count is unwilling to use it, I'm already regretting cooperating with you. With your temperament, you really aren't suited to be a lord. How about this? I'll give you 20% of the control of your right arm. In the following battle, I want to try fusing the nether blood skull into my right arm. Combined with Count's bloodhound, I'm afraid that it will create a completely new scene. Do you want to try? 20%. What do you take me for? This Count once had a mobile title deed, a mature hybrid demon that has secret connections with the 5 great powers. 30%, hee. 40%, no. 50%, last chance. Come. In the instant that Count's consciousness agreed, the transformation began. 1. The G-virus was fully enhanced, a huge eyeball opened on the shoulder. Through the stimulation of the potential of the G-virus, the foundation of the right arm was laid in advance so that it could perfectly withstand the subsequent changes. Mutated demonization -20%, only on the right arm. 2. The tentacle lover feature was activated. The zombie's right arm instantly disintegrated into gray tentacles and violently whipped the ground. 3 counts consciousness connected to 50%, inducing the tentacles to undergo isomerization, entanglement and convergence. So that Han Dong's right arm was constructed into a terrifying bloodhound. Armhound, unlike the previous bloodhound that grew at the back of the arm, the division of labor was different. At present, it directly abandoned the original posture of the right arm and completely transformed into a bloodhound. The control, damage, and attack range all doubled. When the hundred-eyed bloodhound stared at its target, more than 30 bloodwomen felt instinctive fear and took a step back at the same time. However, the bloodhound's target was not them. Whoosh! It opened its big mouth and swallowed the nether blood skull, suspended in the air, into its body. 4. Nether blood fusion counts consciousness intimately felt the blood that he had never seen before mixed into the bloodhound's body. He was also very excited. If there was a chance, he really wanted to play Demon King in his private theater to express his mood at the moment. At the same time, Han Dong's body was also under a huge physical burden. If Han Dong's clothes were lifted, he would find that the black vortex on the surface of his torso was slowly rotating. In this way, the burden of the right arm's distortion was reduced. After a while, the nether blood skull that was swallowed into the body slowly emerged on the bloodhound's forehead, perfectly fitting. Hound, arm, eye, tentacles, and blood, expressed in the most perfect form of fusion. It symbolized the current stage, Warren Nicholas's strongest close combat level. When she saw the posture of Han Dong's right body, Knight Lisa received a visual impact that she could not accept. The pressure skyrocketed. She immediately took off the black iron helmet, knelt on one knee and vomited crazily. Just as Lisa raised her head again, more than 30 blood women had been torn into pieces and scattered wantonly. Chapter 770. Practicing both close combat and magic at the same time, and wanting to reach a high enough level, was basically an impossible task. You can have your cake and eat it too. The ancients told the future generations this truth a long time ago. After all, a person's energy was extremely limited. For example, Han Dong had a year to completely immerse himself in the library to study magic. Basically, he spent a whole day reading. How could he have time to train his body and combat skills? The same was true for Abel of the 100 Beasts. Every day, he needed to carry out high-intensity combat training with various types of beast knights in the Behemoth Night. The time for sleeping and eating was compressed to 4 hours. Moreover, there was a high probability of injury in combat. It was simply impossible to learn magic knowledge. But this was only limited to ordinary people. Han Dong was different. The feature of assembling a body could save him a lot of detours. For example, when it came to training the body, Han Dong could assemble a body that was already trained within the limits of his cells. Others might have spent years or even decades to train their bodies, but Han Dong could do so within the limits of his cells. However, there was still a problem to consider. Even if he had a trained body, he still needed combat skills to exert the potential of the body. Han Dong needed to study magic, do experiments, manage the manner, and various things of the Behemoth Night. Therefore, the time to learn combat skills must also be saved. In this way, the sword, spear, and axe were basically goodbye to Han Dong. The problem was back to how to exert the potential of the body without relying on conventional combat skills. The answer was in Han Dong himself: tentacles. Scarlet Mountain Villa. When Han Dong first met Count and saw the blood dog, he found the answer in his heart. He used advanced tentacle skill, isomerization, as his own special combat skill to squeeze out the potential of the body. As for conventional close combat weapons, Han Dong couldn't control them. However, the accessory obtained from the final treasure of the Resurrection of the Clown chain of events happened to solve the problem of Han Dong not being able to control weapons. It could directly enhance the blood dog through the nether blood. Han Dong's realization of his own close combat ability became a process similar to a factory assembly line. G-arm activation, metamorphosis, disassembling the arm into tentacles, isomerization, blood dog, fusion with the nether blood. The most important thing to consider during such a process was the burden on the body. Obtaining the clown's body perfectly solved this problem. He was different from Dempsey. The close combat mage that Han Dong played was inclined towards non-human, which was a direct representation of a chaotic state. Hell-blood hound arm, the dark red dog's mane, danced in the air. 2. The overall length of the arm was slightly longer, but it did not exceed the human range. 3. Muscle tissue distributed in strips on the back arm, as well as some blood clots similar to stacked crystals. The shoulder area is the densest and most protruding, making the whole arm look more slender. The forearm was the original form of the blood dog that had absorbed the power of the underworld blood. The 100 eyes that were originally scattered all over the body gathered to form 4 ferocious eyes that were symmetrically arranged on both sides of the forearm. 5. The dog's mouth corresponds to the palm. Compared to the previous blood dog, it is simplified and reduced in size. At the same time, it retains the 5 fingers structure. His palm was his mouth. His fingers are his mouth. The fingers with gum tissue were full of sharp teeth dripping with blood. As for the fused, underworld blood skull, it was embedded in the back of the hand. This form not only retained the original form of the human arm, but also made it convenient for Han Dong to control. At the same time, it also perfectly sublimated the essence and strength of the blood dog, allowing it to obtain the strongest close combat posture. Overall, it looked a lot more pocket-sized than before, but its strength was several times that of Count's blood dog. At this time, Count, who had obtained 50% control of the right arm, was extremely high. He had never experienced such power. With a wave of his hand, there weren't any fancy moves. The Hell Blood Dog's arm instantly locked onto 30 enemies. Elongation, proliferation, expansion, division in an instant. The flowers of flesh and blood had withered. Lisa resisted the discomfort in her heart as the flesh and blood slipped out from the gaps of the blood dog's teeth. She resisted the mental pressure that lingered in her brain with her willpower. He took out the blasphemy scripture and dealt with the scattered pieces of flesh. The fragrance of meat in the room was reduced by nearly half in an instant. Obviously, Mary and Xia did not expect Han Dong to have such powerful strength. Before more than 30 bodies were destroyed, they did not have time to shift their consciousness. Ah! The seductive voice immediately turned into a shriek filled with resentment. The black sand on the ground was covered by the spurting meat soup in a short period of time. Painful faces, like bubbles, kept appearing on the surface of the meat soup. They were ferocious, painful, and angry. Just as the meat soup overflowed their knees, a strange phenomenon occurred. Plop! The ground that should have been under their feet suddenly disappeared. It was as if they had fallen into a pot of meat soup. The two of them continued to sink in the sticky and fragrant meat soup. Large and small flesh flowers began to grow on the surface of their bodies, trying to restrict their movements. The meat domain, can it have such a big impact on reality? It seems that this Mary and Xia were a very powerful hybrid demon when they were alive. While Han Dong was thinking indifferently during the process of sinking, Miss Lisa was already unable to hold on. After suffering the double pressure brought by the hybrid demons and Han Dong, now that she had sunk into the hybrid demon's domain, her thoughts were almost destroyed by the pressure. Her entire person showed a certain degree of madness. Seeing this situation, Han Dong put his mouth close to Lisa's ear and laughed softly. Ha ha! The crazy laughter immediately crawled into her brain like a centipede, forcibly interrupting the operation of her brain and causing her to fall unconscious. At the same time, a crow was separated and bit Lisa's armor to keep the two of them sinking at the same speed. As the two of them sank to the bottom, The true body of Mary and Shia, flower of flesh, was also revealed. The whole body reached a height of 10 meters. She had a gigantic tyrant flower as her throne. Every flower spot of the overlord flower had the ability to devour. And she herself stood in the center of the overlord flower. One was a female giant piled up and inlaid with countless female bodies. She had a golden crown on her head. Such an image was enough to indicate her status when she was alive. She was probably one level higher than Count Ka the crow left the current area with the unconscious Miss Lisa in its mouth. Just as Han Dong fell to the bottom of the meat soup, Mary and Shia, who were filled with anger, suddenly waved her hand. Hundreds of flesh-shaped tentacles whizzed over. There was nowhere to hide. However, Han Dong didn't think about hiding. Count 100% of the right arm's usage rights are all yours. Let's fight together. Humph. You still have to rely on me. Spell resonance. The array rotated, and the crow's staff appeared in the palm of his left arm. The death aura rose. Han Dong was on the left, and Count was on the right. It was as if a crow pharaoh who controlled death was leading his favorite mad dog to hunt personally. Chapter 771. In the street area of the underground city where the final nights were located, a black vortex appeared on the ground, and an old man with a bulging back and many ghost faces slowly rose from it. He held a terrifying and fresh skull staff in his hand. With the appearance of this person, the death aura on the street doubled. The final knights who lived here all stopped what they were doing and walked out of their houses. They put their right hands on their chests and bowed to show their respect. However, a large portion of the people's eyes flickered with a hint of fear. The person who came was the deputy commander of the final knights, Stalvin Mr. Manto. It seemed that he had not returned to the knights for a long time. Stalvin's other identity was also very strange. He was the former commander of the final knights. Under normal circumstances, if the commander stepped down, he would be responsible for some core management work behind the scenes in the Holy City. For example, he would be an honorary professor, vice principal, or principal in the National Royal Knight. He would be responsible for nurturing future generations or leaving behind a batch of empirical works that could guide future generations. Or he would be a high-ranking supervisor or supervisor in the Knight's headquarters. He would arrange and formulate investigation missions based on his own experience. Some strong people were even invited to the council to be special judges. Of course, there were also some commanders who had contributed too much to the human race. Their hands were stained with the blood of hybrid demons. After they stepped down, they lived a relatively peaceful life in the noble residential area of the Holy City. If a strange event happened in the residential area, they would naturally help to deal with it. A situation like Stalvin's, where the commander stepped down and immediately became the deputy commander, was unprecedented in the development of the Holy City. It was not a problem with the system. It was a problem within the final knights and Commander Stalvin himself. After the commander stepped down, he had to be the deputy commander to assist the younger generation. No one could justify this. Talking about this had to involve the O-Commander system. It was slightly different from other knight orders. The knights here were involved in a rare and fatal realm of death. This would lead to a problem. The final knights would have a deeper understanding of death as they grew older. In short, the older they were, the stronger they were. Their lifespan was also much longer than other knights. Therefore, the final knights were not suitable for the O-Commander system set by the Holy City. Especially the problem of stepping down when one's strength began to decline after reaching a certain age. It was impossible to judge whether the commander was at his peak based on age and time. It was possible that after 100 years, the commander had become stronger and would continue to become stronger. However, it was also possible that one of the juniors in the Doomed Knights had a higher understanding of death than their commander. Considering the future development of the Order, about 100 years ago. The final knights wrote a letter to the council and requested for a leader system that was suitable for them. After the council's discussion, a special leader system was introduced. Final choice. Every 5 years, 5 elite knights will be chosen according to Destiny Knights' personal records to fight with the leader in a 1v1 duel. At the same time, 2 conditions must be met. 1. A special representative from the Parliament shall act as the judge of the duel. 2. The duel must be watched by more than 23 Knights of Destiny. If the final knight who participated in the duel could defeat the leader directly, he would be promoted. However, to be able to sit in the position of commander, one must have reached the threshold of commander of the 13-knight regiment. As time passed, the power of death continued to grow. Moreover, the authority of the commander could bring more resources for self-improvement. It was extremely difficult to defeat the commander. It was the same. Skull-maker Stalvin Misterman had been the commander of the Doomed Knights for 53 years. Because of his strange temper, extremely strict management methods, and the evil necromancy he practiced, he was privately known as the Skeleton Demon King. In the past, everyone in the Order changed their faces when they talked about him. Until a few decades ago. In the Knight Conference, 2 geniuses appeared out of nowhere. They defeated the Knights of the same year in a way that was close to crushing them. Then, the 2 of them performed a battle of the century that exceeded the standards of their peers in the arena. In the end, because Malone gave a strong slash under unbelievable circumstances, he forced Alex into a dead end. Alex made a fool of himself and completed a breakthrough in the field of death, turning the tables and ending the battle. Alex, who joined the Doomed Knights as the first in line, obtained exaggerated battle results and a dazzling array of brilliant battle records in the next few years. In the 8th year, he was chosen as the commander's challenger by the Parliament. Under the supervision of High Councilman Francis, all the Doomed Knights watched. Alex defeated Stalvin head-on and ended an era. Private rumors said that the relationship between Stalvin and Alex was not very good. The Parliament also took this into consideration and had a one-on-one conversation with Stalvin. However, Stalvin made it clear that he did not care. He even wanted to continue to be the deputy commander of the Order after he retired. After all, his strength did not decline, it was just that Alex was more powerful. After that, the Parliament often sent people to secretly monitor Stalvin's movements. Once there was any conflict between the 2, they would immediately deal with it. Who knew? Stalvin not only did not cause trouble, but he also did his best to help Alex with his affairs. He even took the initiative to be the manager of the hotel prison, so that Alex could have more time to train. Stalvin stepped into the Knights' headquarters building. A black cloak fluttered down from the 2nd floor, and Alex personally welcomed him. "Teacher, why are you here?" The so-called teacher was also when Alex became the commander. The 2 of them discussed chaos together. At that time, Alex was still young. Although he could explore the chaos with his talent and ability, he did not know anything about the inside. Stalvin had already spied on the chaos for many years. He taught everything he saw and learned to Alex without holding anything back. Just like that, a wonderful teacher-student relationship was established. Who knew? When Stalvin came to the door, he directly hit Alex's head with a stick, not showing any mercy at all, even if there were other knights in the hall. "Are you afraid of losing the position of commander, so you deliberately did not recruit the first person in this year's knight election, Warren Nicholas?" Alex, who was hit with a stick, was not angry, but he immediately replied, "Nicholas? I had already done a lot of ideological work for him beforehand. Malone was also fighting with me, and I even privately gave him the privilege of a free man." Who knew that Commander Hugo was still a level higher? Hugo is the same. As long as it's something that this monster is interested in, he will do whatever it takes and use all sorts of methods to get it. I can only blame myself for being in seclusion some time ago. Otherwise, I would definitely help you get this student. Alex continued to ask, although this kid is very special, he is not at the point where he can threaten me. Teacher, you suddenly mentioned Nicholas. Did something happen below? This kid killed Mary Shia in the mansion as soon as he came. He was not affected by any pollution, pressure, or death domain. If we continue to let him go, it may disrupt the balance of the chaos area. It depends on your arrangement. With his current ability, he should not be able to kill Flower of Flesh and Blood, Mary Shia, right? Teacher, do you have a video in your hands? See for yourself. A drop of chaos pool water flowed out from the tip of the stick. When it fell to the ground, it immediately showed the battle scene in the meat soup. Chapter 772. 4 hours had passed. After Han Dong confirmed the strength of the target, he handed over the right half of his body to Count for the first time. The purpose was to better control the underworld blood. With Count's understanding of the bright red color, he could better exert the combat power of the right half of his body than Han Dong. As for Han Dong, he focused on the control of the black magic. Underworld Blood Hound Arm, the close-range combat power displayed was terrifying. Any fancy moves were useless in front of it and would be broken in one bite. Under the control of the Count, the entire right arm could be long or short, big or small, and could change in an instant. It could deal with any situation, tear apart any attack from the Flower of Flesh and Blood, and crush the defense line formed by many layers of flesh. As for the left half of Han Dong's body, he only needed to distract the enemy and kill. At the right time, he could perfectly release the black magic, giving Count the perfect opportunity to attack. At the same time, he used the power of death to destroy the flesh and blood scattered on the ground. Even if the two of them cooperated seamlessly and completely suppressed Mary and Shia. However, 4 hours had passed, and they still could not kill the target. The flesh scattered in the meat soup, even if it was all chewed up and swallowed into Count's body, even if it was annihilated by the black sand from the Pharaoh's origin, could still be regenerated in the meat soup without limit. Although the breath was weakening, it still could not fall below the lower limit. Count, who had been wantonly slaughtering at the beginning, also felt the invasion of fatigue at this moment, and the speed of the bloodhound's activity decreased significantly. Count, what's going on? Didn't you say you could solve it? Now it seems that this lady meat can still continue, but you are about to die. TSK. Isn't it because this girl has died once, and some of her characteristics have changed? She seems to be able to use some characteristics of death to prevent her breath from falling below a certain lower limit, and she can regenerate without limit. Under normal circumstances, she would have died long ago. If it was my original body, I would definitely be able to kill her with the holy sword. In other words, you can't, am I right? Hey, make it clear, who is the one who can't do it? Isn't it because your body isn't good enough? If it was this Count's previous body, I would have casually fought 300 rounds with this Miss Fleshflower. Stop talking nonsense and think of a way. This Count doesn't want to die here. Then great expedition is coming soon. This Count wants to experience it. Since the Count's words showed signs of defeat, Han Dong no longer ridiculed him. Instead, he switched back to the topic of conversation. I've been observing her all this time. I'm guessing that the reason she can't be killed and her life force is maintained at a certain level is because she was resurrected from a certain high-purity death crystal. Or maybe it's because we didn't kill her as well as Captain Alex did. He would have to use an even more powerful method to kill her. It is precisely because of this that the fallen knights here choose to avoid fighting as much as possible. Alex, this human knight is almost as dangerous as a king. Are you sure you can do that? Yes, but I need Count to buy me some time. What? As soon as he finished speaking, Han Dong took the initiative to cut off his right arm, letting the underworld blood dog arm temporarily separate from the body, the soul was still connected. Many tentacles split out from the body surface and weaved into 4 legs. A blood dog with a long mane and a blood crystal structure was independent. It stared at the flesh flower group that was constantly multiplying and splitting in the meat soup and pounced on it. It prevented the regeneration of the flesh flower and stabilized it at the boundary of being killed. Staring at the independent battle scene of the blood dog through multiple splitting, tentacles attacking, and sharp teeth tearing, Han Dong whispered, "Counts. This person is still reliable. Try to use the improvement of the death realm to instantly exert more strength than when Captain Alex killed the target." Han Dong, who had transformed into a one-armed man, held the raven staff horizontally and sat cross-legged at the bottom of the meat soup domain. With absolute trust in Count, he closed his eyes and meditated, through the assistance of dark lore and the enhancement provided by the staff. It allowed Han Dong's mind to quickly settle into the deeper area of the death realm. He tried to go to the Crowmen tribe under the jurisdiction of the Raven God and borrow some powerful death power again. Along with the sinking of his consciousness, Han Dong failed to successfully contact the Raven God this time, and his consciousness was still sinking deeper into the death realm. Just when Han Dong felt that something was not right and wanted to interrupt this process, the disguise on his left arm was forcibly removed, revealing a dry mummy arm wrapped in a few rags. At the same time, the surface of the skin appeared to be regularized and decertified, and some strange Egyptian characters were printed out. One by one, scarabs crawled in and out of the hollow characters. Han Dong's consciousness seemed to sink into the yellow sand and came to the bottom of an ancient tomb in Egypt. When he saw the words in the tomb, the energy of the talent tree in Han Dong's mind was almost instantly drained, and a powerful pharaoh power filled his body. The sand domain was formed naturally. The meat soup domain was forcibly covered by the ancient sand in a short time, and the domain released by Han Dong suppressed Mary and Shia. This is. When he opened his eyes again, Han Dong's eyeballs had evolved into a sand ball structure, and fine sand was still flowing out of his pupils. Count was also stunned, and he was fighting with a half-flower, half-human life form wrapped in sand. Since the formation of the talent tree, Han Dong had not encountered a situation where his energy was drained for a long time. He quickly picked a red fruit and crazily swallowed to replenish his energy to prevent himself from fainting. This is the strength of the undying sacrifice? It seems that, in the next destiny journey, I have to fight for a trip to the mummy or the related world. Pharaoh, Kobold, and ancient texts. These knowledge systems of the ancient Egyptian civilization must be studied thoroughly. When he thought of this, the energy in Han Dong's body could no longer be suppressed and continued to pour out. Using the special state of his left arm, he aimed his palm at the flesh flower that was trying to regenerate. "Count, get out of the way." "Woof." The actual answer was, "Okay." Through the blood dog carrier, it was naturally a dog barking, the moment the blood dog retreated. Death grip, a large amount of black sand instantly overflowed from the hollow holes on the surface of the left arm, and each grain of sand had the terrifying power to suck life. The sand particles reconstructed, and the arm enlarged by more than 10 times. It directly grabbed at the target, and the palm transformed into the terrifying face of Imhotep, which swallowed the flower of flesh and blood. The power of death contained within the sand particles was instantly injected into it, killing it. At this moment, the strength of the attack exceeded the strength of Mary and Shia's death. There were no screams, no roars, everything dissipated in the sand. In the end, what was caught in Han Dong's palm was a pure and flawless spherical crystal. The rich death energy contained inside would be perfectly used for Han Dong's own cultivation. Chapter 773. Because he had killed the important hybrid demon in the ancestral mansion. A path leading to the outside of the mansion opened by itself. Han Dong would not be greedy and continue to go deeper into the mansion. Dealing with Mary and Xia had almost exhausted Han Dong's physical strength. Even Count was panting. Moreover, he had gained a lot. In addition to obtaining the crystal, Han Dong also officially verified the actual combat effect of the underworld blood dog arm. And at the end of the battle, with the special nature of the chaos area and the awakening of his left arm, his consciousness sank into the depths of a death temple in ancient Egypt. At the cost of draining his energy, he unleashed a high-level dark magic. It proved that the potential of his left arm was great, and it was completely worth Han Dong's development. Because of the double pressure from the hybrid demon and Han Dong, Miss Lisa fell into a deep coma in the later stages of the battle. When she woke up again, she was already on the path down the mountain. Because Miss Lisa's body was a mixture of muscles and tentacles, the density of her body increased. Her weight was about 200 kilograms, and she was also carrying a blasphemous heavy sword that was close to 500 kilograms. If Han Dong wanted to take Lisa down the mountain, he would have to use other methods. A tentacle lover. A simple flatbed made of black trees in the forest. Then, more than 10 thick spotted tentacles grew from Han Dong's back and dragged the flatbed down the mountain. "You're awake." Han Dong turned his head and asked. Lisa, who had just woken up, saw the scene of the tentacle flatbed, and the pressure increased again. "Vomit." She vomited directly on the flatbed. There were even some tentacles darting in and out of the gaps in Lisa's armor. If the pressure was not released, Lisa might completely go berserk. Pressure release. Han Dong had followed the team members to the church several times, so he was very clear about the concept of pressure release. Whipping oneself was the most direct way to release it. Of course, the specific way to release it was related to one's personality and hobbies. Some people liked to gamble, so they directly went to the casino to gamble. Some people liked to spend, so they went to the trade area to shop crazily. Some people liked to read, so they went to the library to read for 3 days and 3 nights. If Han Dong was a normal knight, he would receive pressure from the outside world. He would probably choose to dissect the bodies of hundreds and thousands of white mice in the laboratory or read hundreds of academic papers. No matter how great the mental pressure was, he would be able to vent it all. "Miss Lisa, how do you usually vent your stress?" Wiping away the vomit at the corner of her mouth, Lisa glanced at the empty forest. "There's no one here. Help me take off my armor." Upon hearing this, Han Dong vaguely felt that something was not quite right. Considering the urgency of the situation, he could only follow Lisa's instructions. The light armor peeled off. She was only wearing a thin white bra, and her skin was full of profane words. "Nicholas, please use a sharp object to carve words on my body. Just carve according to these blasphemous words. You don't have to mind my moaning. Do it however you feel comfortable." "All right." Han Dong did not dwell on it. With the proper attitude of an academic researcher, he used his G-arm to grow a long, thin, and sharp nail and began to carve words on Lisa's body. A painful but slightly comfortable sound kept ringing in the deep forest. However, Han Dong entered a different state while he was carving the words. When his consciousness sank into the temple's secret room at the bottom of the yellow sand, he also glimpsed many ancient Egyptian words. Unknowingly, he had carved them back and forth on Miss Lisa's body, completely relieving the pressure. He returned to the Black Lotus village with Miss Lisa, who was full of scars. For a dead person like her, as long as the pressure was removed, her body would slowly recover. Staring at Lisa, who was sleeping soundly in the room, Han Dong was not interested at all. He immediately closed the door, went to the living room alone, and looked at the Egyptian female corpse that had been placed on the ground with a strange smile. Next, Han Dong would try to establish a connection between his left arm and the female corpse with the high-purity death crystal he had just obtained. When the crystal was cast, due to the homology of death, it floated on the surface of the female corpse. Due to the influence of the high-purity death aura inside the crystal, the corpse that had been sealed for thousands of years suddenly moved, and her index finger was slightly bent. It seems that some connection has been established, but it's far from enough. This Egyptian princess appetite is really big. Han Dong's mind came up with a more terrible plan. Hesitation did not exist for him. Once he hesitated whether to do something, Han Dong would immediately take action. Since the concept of hesitation existed, it was generated by intuition. Han Dong believed in his intuition. The second stage of the assessment may only last 15 days. I have to hurry up, thinking of this. Han Dong immediately put away the crystal and the female corpse. He found a large conspicuous wooden sign and wrote the English letters, rental, on the front through tentacle ink. On the back were the rental details, free rental. I can follow any team to explore the ancestral mansion. I am not affected by any pressure. My perception is recognized by the village chief. You are welcome to rent and book in advance. In order to attract attention, Han Dong painted an exaggerated smile on his face, disguised in a colorful suit, and stood at the central intersection of the Black Lotus village with a sign. This action immediately attracted the attention of a large number of dead people. Because every time he went to the ancestral mansion, he had to submit a depleted crystal. As long as Han Dong could follow other teams, the problem of the pass would be solved. Han Dong labeled himself as a free tool and was very popular with the villagers. More than a dozen teams had booked the rental time. Immediately, he set off with a team of 3. It seemed that he was a free tool who followed the team and was responsible for perception and investigation. In fact, Han Dong would induce the team to do all kinds of dangerous interactions through a method similar to whispering and deliberately lure out the dead hybrid demons in the dark side. By killing them head-on, he quickly obtained the intermediate and advanced crystals in the bodies of the hybrid demons. Han Dong's purpose was very simple: quick mowing. To collect the dead crystals as quickly as possible. But no one knew what he was doing with the crystal stones. Unknowingly, the time had come to the final stage of the will and courage assessment. The knights who had lived in Tal prison for 15 days were led by the undead and returned to the ground area. Where is my husband? Where is my husband? When Mia came out of the prison, she already looked like a half-spider. Being locked up alone in the prison for 15 days made her lovesick. As soon as she came out, she asked around for information about Han Dong. No one knew. When the prison was emptied, there was still no trace of Han Dong. Just as the manager was about to close Tal prison, Death and an old man of the leader level arrived at Daffodil Square at the same time. Under the watchful eyes of the warden and the undead, they stepped into the prison together. Chaos area between Black Lotus Village and the Ancestral Mansion area, there was a building that did not belong here. A small yellow sand pyramid was located in the open area of the forest. In the deepest part of the intricate pyramid, there was a black crystal coffin. The material was the dead crystal, which was only produced in the chaos area. A young man and a female corpse were lying in the coffin. The Egyptian female corpse, which was originally well preserved, had some uneven and even penetrating holes on her body. Han Dong's left arm felt that it had grown flesh. Detected that the host's grafted hand of immortal sacrifice has been improved. Chapter 774. Hand of the Undead Sacrifice Detailed Data Table Comparison Completion Ancient Corpse Flesh 20% 40% Quality Unique plus Weight Requirement 80 points 90 points Basic Attributes Frowny Face Strength E- Reflex C+ Hardness A- Toughness D- Magic Resistance A+. Normal Characteristics Frowny Face Yellow Sand Grants individual black magic system, yellow sand. can increase proficiency through self-cultivation, or use special methods to complete and perfect the arm to unlock more advanced. Yellow Sand Magic. Unique characteristics. Power of the Undead Sacrifice LV 1 LV 2 activates the will of the undead sacrifice to increase affinity to black magic. This effect can be improved as the arm is perfected. Note: the arm was taken from the incomplete, undead sacrifice, Imhotep. Therefore, this arm still has the possibility of being perfected. Ordinary flesh and blood cannot satisfy the needs of the arm. Only ancient Egyptian sacred objects, ancient hearts, or the body of a high-level black magic life can satisfy the needs of this arm. Slogan: Sands of the desert, rise and block off the sun. Desert, raise your sand and block the sun's light. Han Dong's wanton behavior in the chaos zone. Captain Alex also saw this, but he didn't stop him. On one hand, it was a matter of face. On the other hand, Alex himself wanted to see what Han Dong wanted to do by collecting so many crystals. Besides, this little bit of crystals was nothing to the entire chaos zone. Rumble when the heavy crystal coffin lid was opened again. Han Dong was already in the Grim Reaper's office. With a wave of Captain Alex's hand, all the crystals used to build the coffin were collected. Before opening the coffin, Han Dong had already put the Egyptian female corpse back into the portable prison. The female corpse was not completely drained. Only a part of the corpse's flesh was stripped, so its value was still there. Accompanied by the disintegration of the coffin. When Han Dong saw the two elders in the office, he immediately knelt on one knee. Captain Alex, Deputy Captain Stalvin, you really know how to play. You actually used your own characteristics to wantonly induce the villagers to collect crystals for you and use them to build a crystal coffin to create a sealed space close to chaos. Han Dong's face was also full of embarrassment as he hurriedly said, regarding the misuse of the crystals, I am willing to compensate. This kind of inferior crystal is just a companion in the area covered by the Black Lotus. No matter how much is consumed, it will be regenerated. Naturally, I don't need you to compensate me. I'm not that stingy. Moreover, the reason why you took the test alone in the Chaos Prison was also my arrangement. Therefore, on the evaluation report for the Willpower and Courage test, I will mark it as pass. Thank you, Commander Alex. Next, Teacher Stalvin will ask you some questions in private. Teacher Stalvin has a deeper understanding of true death, chaos, than I do. Yes, when Han Dong looked at the hunchbacked old man, he immediately revealed a look of awe. The old man revealed a sinister smile and pointed outside the door. You've been cooped up in the coffin for so long. Why don't you go out for a walk? All right. To avoid trouble, Han Dong disguised himself as a doctor with a bird's beak to cover his body. Vice Commander Stalvin also retracted the ghost mask on his back and looked like a severely hunchbacked old man. His skeletal staff also turned into an ordinary wooden staff. You can see Alex's goal, right? There's no need to hide in front of me. Han Dong knew very well that lying was meaningless, so he told the truth. Commander Alex seems to be very resentful that I didn't choose the Destiny Knight. If I throw myself into the Chaos Pool, there's a high chance that I will die and become a dead person who signed a contract with the Black Lotus. If I die, I will become a member of the Destiny Knights. That should be the meaning. Yes. This way you can become one of us. Moreover, with your ability, even if you become a dead person below, you will definitely be able to escape. The rumors of the dead are also true. As long as you can reach the deepest part of the mansion and come into contact with the Chaos Black Lotus below, you will have another chance. It's a pity that you will not die after coming into contact with the Chaos Black Lotus. The power of Anubis is indeed one of the death systems closest to the Chaos Black Lotus. This is also Alex's second goal. He wants to verify where your control over death comes from. After all, the God of Crows is only a fake king outside the city, and the death you control is not just that. Anubis? The god of death in Egyptian mythology? Han Dong still had this bit of common sense. Moreover, when he was thrown into the chaos domain, the black sand spell Han Dong released had some doghead images. When Han Dong's consciousness sank into the yellow sand, he also saw ancient murals on the walls of the secret room that involved the dog-headed people. Myths and legends are real in the Destiny realm. For example, the existence that Alex came into contact with in the Destiny realm was Thanatos from Greek mythology. Obtaining mythical contact means that you have a long-term and extreme development. It's a pity that a talent like you doesn't stay with us. Han Dong scratched his head helplessly. At first, I really wanted to come here. However, Captain Hugo gave me an offer that I couldn't refuse. Also, I'm more inclined to work with words, and I also have some characteristics outside the city. It's more suitable for me to stay in the Knights of Secret Words and be in charge of document review and stone slab translation. When the name Hugo was mentioned, the originally kind Captain Stalvin's aura immediately changed. Many skulls hung on the surface of his cane. When the black liquid of death dripped down the skulls, it immediately turned into a small vortex and swallowed the surrounding matter. Harrison Hugo. Do you know what his true nature is? Mr. Black and White has told me about Captain Hugo. Although it's very shocking, I can still accept it. Has the Raven told you about it? If so, I have nothing to say. As for the idea of joint cultivation, I directly rejected it. However, I still have to remind you, since you've come into contact with mythical death, it's destined that as long as you develop seriously, you'll be able to step into chaos like Alec. You'll be strong enough to rival the old king. Don't shift your focus too much. Focus on non-human powers. Thank you for the reminder, Captain Stalvin. The conversation ended unhappily. Han Dong could see that Stalvin was very repulsed by Hugo. The two might have had some dealings in the past. However, this conversation was very interesting. Mythical contact. Is there such a distinction between Destiny realm abilities? Han Dong looked at his left arm. Without camouflage, it looked no different from a human's arm. It was just that there were a few more tattered strips of cloth, and it looked slightly skinny. As for the balance of the body, I'll naturally find it. Phew. This way I've passed the test. The great expedition is coming. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.